All right, it appears that we have a quorum here this morning. So, Miss Amy, do you mind giving us a roll call here as I call us to order?
Certainly. Mr. Van Den Hending.
Here.
Ms. LePack.
Here.
Mr. Tenney.
Present.
Mr. Detheridge.
Here.
Superintendent Walters.
Here. Okay, so we do have a quorum. Ms. London, was the board meeting agenda posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act?
It was, sir.
Okay, very good. All right, next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will, please stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, the Oklahoma flag salute. I salute the flag of the state of Oklahoma, its symbols of peace unite all people. And now I'm going to say a prayer. I pray, dear God, I pray that every Oklahoma child is provided an education that gives them every opportunity in life that they desire. I pray that every parent is involved and treated as the one who knows best for their child as God intended. I pray that every teacher is provided the wisdom and resources to truly impact every child's life for the better. Amen. I'm going to start off my comments to the board on kind of a somber note here. I know Ms. LePack knew Terry Cheadle very well. Terry Cheadle was our board secretary. She'd served at the State Department since 2000. She'd served in public service for 27 years. She passed away about a week ago. They're having a memorial service today. She was an incredible lady. She served under 4 different superintendents, and as you know, the superintendents, very different philosophies, very different way of doing things. She was a true professional, very kind woman to everybody that she talked to, everyone she worked with. She was a joy to have in the office. Did her job extremely well, but was just a fine woman. And she had just retired a few months before. And our prayers and thoughts go out to her family. But she will be missed, and I want to observe 27 years of public service. She dedicated a large part of her life to helping Oklahomans. And so I would like to acknowledge, and please keep her family in your prayers. And our thoughts are with their family today. We've had several teachers pass towards the end of this year. It's always heartbreaking when you hear those stories. There was one teacher in particular. He was from McAllister Public Schools. His name was Sean Calloway. I worked very closely with Sean for several years. Great teacher, great father. It came very sudden. I think it's had a large impact on the folks down in McAllister Public Schools. He was a top-of-the-line individual, great teacher, mentored me in my first few years, and friend, great teacher, impacted the lives of many students. And so my prayers are with his family. I'd like to keep them in our thoughts and prayers as well, especially those students in his class as he passed in the middle of the year. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge those two, and I'd like for us to keep them in our prayers and our thoughts as they've passed on. Sorry, guys, I didn't. Sorry about that for a second. Let me kind of regroup here for a minute. Okay. Now getting to the updates for the board of some of the goings-ons here in the agency. Got some very exciting updates for you that we've been very excited to share. The first is a waiver that we've given to the Federal Department of Education. It's the largest waiver that the Federal Department of Education's ever seen. I've been meeting regularly with the senior officials, both in the Federal Department of Education and the White House. We will continue to work on moving this forward, but what this would do is empower us as a state to have a lot more autonomy a lot more flexibility over what education looks like, which frankly is what the founders intended. As I talk to Oklahomans, I think, Republican, Democrat, independents, teachers, parents, hey, let us make the decisions on what education looks like. Tremendous opportunity. As a special ed teacher myself, you see a lot of regulations around special education that could be lifted. You see a lot of issues around testing, things like that. So there's a tremendous opportunity. We've been working very closely with the House leadership, Senate leadership on that front. So we're very excited about that waiver. We'll continue to give you guys updates. And again, it's a process. You speak with them regularly. You get updates from them. So we'll continue to update you guys as those go on. Two other special announcements that we're very excited about is we announced last week a special ed signing bonus for any teacher who wants to come to Oklahoma and teach special ed. This both applies to out of state. You can get up to $20,000 to move here and teach special ed. If you're in state, so for anybody watching, listening that's at OU, OSU, UCO, if you're a special ed teacher, you stay in the state of Oklahoma, we give you a $10,000 signing bonus. We want to continue to recruit the best and the brightest to Oklahoma. We want to continue to make sure that we've got great teachers in the classroom. Special ed is always a tough area to fill. It's a very difficult job, and part of what our pitch has been to everyone is not only do you get a signing bonus, we've got this waiver out there. We're going to give you more autonomy as a special ed teacher than any other state in the country. We're going to give you the ability to meet the needs of every learner. We're very, very excited about that. Yes.
Funding, or is that local school districts funding?
No, that comes from the State Department of Education. So that comes from some of the federal dollars we receive for both special ed funding and some of our grants. And so that's part of, we believe in the signing bonus program. We appreciate the legislature has done several steps in this regard too to say, how do we think outside the box to recruit people? So we felt like that was a great way to continue it going. So this will be our third year of signing bonuses. So yeah, we're very excited about that. We've tried to be very targeted. What are the key areas? First year we did literacy and special ed. Second year we did math and science to rural areas. And this year again, the data just shows special ed teacher positions are very tough to fill. There's an extra obligation there, a lot more that they have to do. So that was kind of the decision. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next, we also have a very exciting announcement around our merit pay. Again, the legislature has funded what's called the Teacher Empowerment Program. We've talked about it for a couple of years now. We're now knocking on the door of having over 1,000 teachers into that program. It's truly phenomenal. We've got Oklahoma City Public Schools in it, Tulsa Public Schools in it. Have over 80 districts that have joined in. We're hearing there's about to be 24 or so more in their next two board meetings. They're going to start approving these plans. It gives teachers the ability to make up to six figures, stay in the classroom. We're very excited about that. But we're approaching that 1,000 teacher enrollment mark. We want to continue to do that. We want to continue to look at that as we move forward. The only other thing I had on the agenda, and I wanted to address it directly, is I've read some things in the press about our standards. Read some of the comments made from this board. Read comments made by our governor. So when I see something like that, we look at it and say, so we've got, usually don't read the Oklahoman, but I did, and saw in there that board members claimed that they were given a different document than what was voted on, than what was given to the legislature. So I take that very seriously. So we pulled up all three documents. We've sent them to the legislature so they can observe them as well. There are no differences between what you all were emailed, what you all were presented that day, and what was sent to the legislature.
Superintendent Walters, thank you for those comments.
Sure.
I think that goes back to probably my questioning for asking one more time to understand those. And I would still request, I know it's too late now to do anything at this level, but I really have no idea what's in there, what wasn't in there, because I was not given the time to go through those standards in that board meeting. I mean, I'm not a speed reader by any means. I tried to present that case that day, and I respect the board's decision. That was the decision they made to go forward, and that's what they did. But for me personally, that was still something I would have liked to have had more time on, considering we were new members to that. And I thank you for hearing me.
Superintendent Walters, that's what I said, and I will stick by it, is when I was, thank you, when I was on the board, or know it was going to be on the board, I downloaded the standards, begin to review them and read them. And I did that. When I came to the meeting, we voted on them. That's what I thought I was voting on, was what I downloaded and reviewed. That was what was posted for public. That's what I reviewed. After the meeting, I heard something in the press said they'd been changed, so I went back and I compared what I had read from the download to what I was given at the meeting, and they were different. So that is what happened. So I don't know when they were changed. I assume, yes, what we were given for the meeting had the changes in them, yes, I agree with that. But what was on the posting and what I was studying beforehand had been changed, and that was without my knowledge and any, I don't know, I can't speak for others, their knowledge. The way I read the law, I understand that they can be put out for public comment, which they were, but we didn't see those comments. And after comment, they can be changed. However, it's the board that changes them, and the board was not, to my knowledge, notified of those changes. I didn't know about them.
And I might speak to that. We had asked for that during that time to spend more with your expert, and I apologize, I don't remember her name that day, the two ladies that presented that day. I think I'd asked for us to go through that so that we were more clear on that, Superintendent.
Sure. And we did offer more time that day, if you wanted to go through them. And we did walk through the expectation here of, I will say I'm very appreciative of House and Senate leadership. We embedded them throughout the process so that, and some of the board members that were removed actually were embedded through the standards writing process as well. But to be clear, I don't control when the governor puts you on the board. You guys were placed on the board at the very end of the process that we had planned out for over 10 months. That has always been the superintendent for over 20 years who ultimately makes a decision on what is in the standards and how it is presented to the board. And just to be clear, when we put things out for public comment, we actually do that in a very truthful and upfront way, meaning this is up for public comment, so if you have comments, and if they make this document better, we change the standards. If we were to put things out for public comment and say, no matter what you say, these remain the same, that really defeats the purpose of gathering public comments. So yes, absolutely there were changes made after it was paid for public comment. Mr. Tenney, with all due respect, I can't control what you download from where, but what I can control of what we gave you was the same. And again, so this is untrue when we are claiming here from several board members, because now we've got the governor who's went out and said something that is not true. Now, I believe someone told him that. You know, I don't think the governor went out there and said something he knew to be false, to be clear. But someone has told him that what you were given, what you were emailed, was different than what we walked in here and presented you. And that was different than what we walked over to the legislature, and that's simply not true. And so that is a lie now that has been pushed to the governor. It has been pushed out to the people of Oklahoma. We've had the press that's covered it. And, you know, actually, I'll take up for the press for a minute. That was what was told to you. You reported what was told to you. And that turned out not to be true. So we have now created a fake controversy that the legislature is looking at, but we've given them all the documents to help clear that up. But this was created by board members saying things outwardly, publicly, that are simply not true.
Well,
Mr. Walters, I don't appreciate being called a liar. I have copies of what I did on my computer, what I downloaded, that was posted for public notice. I copied it. I got what I got for the meeting, and they were different significantly. And nobody on the board, to my knowledge, was notified. That's a board decision, the way I read the statutes. Yes, the board can change them after comments, but it says the board, not one person or a group. I don't know who changed them, honestly. So that's what happened.
I think it could have all been resolved, Superintendent Walters, if we would have just given us another week to get together. I mean, very simple, a week. That's what I asked for. I think I left it up to you all to tell me how much time we could have. But I believe the whole thing could have been solved if we'd have slowed the process. I can't help deal, but we don't know what we don't know.
Sure.
And I'm not a speed reader. I apologize. I think, what was it, 400 pages? Somebody with an expert that could tell us?
Sure.
we're not going to be able to go through that and validate that information. And at that point, we didn't know what was prior, what had been changed. We didn't have a document that had redlined items that this was changed to this was changed.
Sure.
So going forward, I would highly recommend staff to do that for us and that we be allowed the time to go through that. I understand, it seems like to me now the time of urgency was not the case that was presented to us, so I kind of feel like I was deceived in that.
Oh,
Lieutenant Walters.
could you let me know, what exactly do you mean by that?
I believe SDE council said that we'd had 1 day if we'd have waited a month to get that back to us. And I believe he had said that his legislative assistant, and I may be wrong, so I will take that if I am. I believe he was referring to his legislative assistant, said that we would have 1 day to review that information coming back if we had waited a month.
Yes.
If I remember that right. I could not be right, but I'm remembering. So I do believe that that was a misled. So I feel deceived on that because here we are still talking about the standards, and that time frame could have come and gone, and we could have reviewed them. And I think this whole issue would have gone by if we would have just slowed the process and let us understand what was in there. And quite frankly, we may have agreed what was in there. I don't know.
Well, and here's what,
Thank you, Superintendent.
here's would be my response to that. I don't control when the governor placed you three on the board. This was a 10-month process we had in place with a deadline out of respect to the legislature. So I want to just be clear. I'm very respectful. It is up to the legislature to approve or disapprove these rules. If they don't like them, if they feel we didn't do it appropriately, they will send them back to us with very clear comments. If we were to have delayed that a month, I would have been handing something to them at the 11th hour saying, you guys have a few days, send it back to us, and if we don't get it back to you within a 48-hour period, we're waiting a year. Excuse me. And the legislature would have been very within their right to say, Ryan, you've worked on this for 10 months, and you waited till the last minute to send them to us. Have fun. We've got a lot going on over here, and respectfully, they do. They are working on our budget. They're working on a tremendous amount of different programs. So we were very clear with you all that this was a nearly 10-month process. And again, I don't control when you guys got on the board. And again, that's part of what we tried to illustrate to you all, that we were in an absolute, and again, I've met with, I don't know, half a dozen or so legislators yesterday to continue going through this process, that again, they've got committees they want to run it through. They've got their own process, and we want to be very respectful of that and not tie their hands in a way that would be, I frankly think, irresponsible on our end.
I think going forward, we won't put you in that position to do that, so that we will take ownership of that going forward. So I think we've learned our lesson, that not to push things through. And so instead of trying to work with SDE on that, we would just vote no on that in the future. Or for me, I'm going to speak on my behalf, as I did with that day, until I completely understood what was in there. And so, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
I don't know that we created this issue, because as I was driving home from the board meeting, I received a call from a media outlet on my cell phone. I have no idea how they got my cell phone, and said, do you understand these, and these things happen? I said, no, honestly, I don't, but I'll take a look. In the meeting, I believe, and we can go to the record, but I believe I asked for a special meeting in a week or 2 weeks, which would have given us plenty of time to get them to the legislature for review. That was denied. Also, I think it's somewhat inaccurate, because if the legislature takes no action, they become official documents. So there is no need for approval or disapproval, because the legislature, my understanding, is not going to take any action on those standards. So they will become, probably the answer is not law, but they will become the official policy of the State Department of Education. During the meeting, I asked if we could see all the public comments. I would expect in my business, we have change control over documents. So when we have official documents, we document what causes those to change. I don't know if that exists, but we could clarify all of this for everybody. If you just produced your change control that said, here's where we started, here's what we changed, and here's how and why we changed it. So can you produce those?
I mean, first of all, it's completely irrelevant part of the conversation.
I don't think it is.
You're looking at the individual that made the decision on what's in the standards. I'm right here. Ultimately, I make the decision on what's in the standards and what's not. I oversaw a process that went on for 10 months, including hundreds of educators, focus groups that met after public comment, a lot of meetings with legislators, et cetera. So, you know, if there's something in there, if you guys have a problem with it, I'm happy to entertain kind of what subject matter in there is bothering you all so much. But the reality is, we followed a process. I have no control over when you were put on the board. Out of respect to the legislature, we will follow the timeline that's been followed by this agency that predated me by a decade in getting them the rules, getting them the standards in a timely manner. And again, I think I would not agree with your assessment there that the legislature doesn't play much of a significant role here. They do.
I didn't say they didn't. I said in this case, they're not.
No, I disagree with you. I think they play a significant role.
Are they voting on it?
That is up to their discretion. They
The
can.
answer is no, they're not.
So your argument here that you're putting forth today is the legislature isn't doing their job? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
My point is that the way their understanding is, they have three options: to vote yes, to vote no, or to vote to send back or comment. If they choose none of those three, the standards become in effect.
Sure.
So there's no vote.
The decision to allow them to move forward is a decision that they are absolutely allowed to make. But if they don't have any,
don't disagree.
if they don't have any issues, I'm going to allow them to move forward. That's fine. We have followed a significant process, including me speaking to the caucus, including me taking over a dozen meetings with House members, Senate members, walking them through. So a process has played out. So I want to be very clear. The legislature has dug in. They have brought us questions. Again, remember, they were part of this 10 months ago. So they have been actively a part of this. And again, I respect their decision, whether it is to have a hearing and vote on it or say, look, we don't see a problem, so we're going to let them move forward. But that is something we need to be very respectful of a government agency to say, it is ultimately the legislature's decision. I'm not going to stick them with their backs against the wall trying to figure these things out. We've had a great relationship with them. I have a lot of respect for the way that they've handled this process, the rules process, our budget process. And I'm not willing to endanger that when we have done a very good job and put standards forward that I think are the best history standards in the country.
And all that's fine. That's your decision to make. I have no issue with that. I'm with Mr. Deathridge, though. If I would have known what I know now, I would have voted no. It's too late. They're out the door. The legislature's going to take whatever action they choose. It's their choice. And they will become the standards. My point has been from day one, the process is not a good process. The standards were developed, and trust me, I get bombarded daily from people that have comments on what's happening. And I've yet to hear from a single person that's been involved in the process that says, it was a fantastic process. It was airtight. We developed the standards. We got comments. We adjusted the standards, and all's good. Now, I don't doubt some of those people are out there, but they haven't talked to me. The people who have talked to me have said, we believe when we created this 10-month process, we believe we created good standards. Something between that point and what was approved changed, and we didn't think that was good. What you've just said today is the buck stops with you. You made the changes, and that's fine. That's where we are. I don't think there's much more to say about it. I will agree that the next time we look at this, if there is a next time, I will expect a process that develops the standards, that when this whole group develops them and they go for public comment, when changes are made, I want to know what changes are made, and I want to know what caused something to change that we spent 10 months creating. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think anybody would say that's unfair.
May I, sorry, comment?
Yeah.
I agree. When I was called by the media, I didn't say anything about the content of the standards. And I said, and then they asked me what I thought should be done with them, and I said, that's the legislature's ball right now. That's true. However, you just said you're solely responsible for the standards. I read the statute, shall be adopted by the State Board of Education. I read in the statute, the state board shall consider public comments, the use of best practices, evidence and research and evaluation. It's a state board decision. And you just said you made the decision.
No,
So-
no, you voted on it. You made the decision.
But we didn't know that it had been changed before we voted.
I can't make you read.
Can't be our-
Listen, I can't make you read. I can't make you do the research before you vote, but here's what I'm going to say. And my expectation is to not have board members lie about a process and create a fake controversy.
I would
So-
ask you to tell us who you think lied and what that lie was.
Let's go for it.
I mean, so when the board members say they got something different in their email than what they were presented on the date, that is a factual inaccuracy. Is that correct?
Who said that?
I didn't say that. I got it in the email. I said I downloaded it before that from the state side. The ones that were posted, and I reviewed them. Somewhere between the time I got the email and I read that, they had been changed. Nobody here knew that.
So to be clear, we all,
Sit there and read 400 pages of standards that we get 36 hours beforehand, and number one, we wouldn't even have any reason to know they had been changed. It would have never dawned on me somebody would have changed them without telling the board whose duty it is to adopt them.
okay, so just to be clear, we all agree then, right? That what you were emailed was what you were presented in the board meeting, which was what was given to the legislature. There was no inaccuracies in the process as we gave you information. We emailed you the same thing that we showed you, which was the same thing that we voted on, which was handed to the legislature. Can we all agree that that's what happened, and this fake controversy that there was an old switcheroo around here is completely bunk? Can we all agree to that?
I think to say what you just said and then call it a fake controversy is disingenuous.
Okay.
It is a controversy because the changes were not known to the public or the people that were involved in developing the baseline standards, and they feel there was a bait and switch. I don't know. I'm not a forensic scientist. I don't know what happened, nor have I ever claimed to know what happened. What I do claim is the process was flawed, and I stand by that, and I've not heard anything from you that makes me think otherwise. So I'm just saying, you brought it up. We've said our piece. I don't know what else there is to talk about. But if you say again that we lied, we'll talk some more, because I don't think anybody lied. There may have been some comments that weren't 100% accurate, but I wouldn't say that's new to the Department of Education. So let's just calm down and move on.
I'm pretty calm. So you just said that there were inaccurate statements made, and I agree with that. That was what my position was, and I appreciate you acknowledging board members made inaccurate statements.
Inaccurate and lying are two different things, and one involves character and another doesn't. So I don't appreciate it.
Okay, that's okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on with the agenda here. We got a lot to do today. The next item there is 5. We've got a discussion and possible action on the minutes of the January 28th, 2025 regular board meeting. We do have 2 here. We didn't have a quorum of folks that were comfortable voting on the January 28th one the first time, so just to be clear, we do have 2 different sets of minutes here. Been a while since we've met. Please let me know if we can take action, comments, feedback. And again, those need to be 2 separate. Correct. Okay. Those would be 2 separate actions there. So it's 2 different board meetings dating back January 28th, February 27th, both. Just approval of minutes here is what we're seeking.
Superintendent Walters, I make a motion that we decline January 28th's minutes.
Okay, is there any reason we're declining the minutes of January?
I was not there, therefore I cannot speak to what would actually happen, sir.
Okay.
And I don't want to go down a controversy road.
Okay.
So I can just say, I wasn't there.
Sure,
I can't vote for it. I don't think the 3 of us were there.
sure.
Ms.
I actually was not there either, but I think I asked for clarification in this in the February meeting, but I'll ask again to our attorneys. We're voting on whether or not these minutes as presented to us comport with the transcript that we read or watched of the meeting, and not verifying that we were here or that we participated in this action or any action.
That is correct. My recollection is that decision on that was deferred, so the transcript could be made and review could be made, so you could ascertain for yourself whether or not there needed to be any changes to the minutes. You're not certifying by approving that you personally participated in those minutes, only that they accurately reflect in form and substance what took place in that meeting. It doesn't have to be a verbatim statement. It just has to accurately reflect the matters taken up and action items voted upon.
We had the written transcript of the January meeting at the February meeting materials, and I reviewed them and felt that the minutes reflect what was in the transcript.
And in respect to what Mr. Dethridge is saying, what would be we have 3 board members that they weren't on the board at that time. What would be could we review the minutes for a future meeting and then approve it? Is there any danger in not approving? Again, we can postpone it. I don't think there's an issue there, but kind of how can we get these approved for documentation purposes? Is that going to be the best way to do it, is produce minutes, video, probably get the video, send it to them, the minutes? What's going to be, I'm just trying to think of
Yes, and
how
I
we.
thought that had been done. Has that not been done?
No, sir, there's a motion on the floor with a second. I think it's for time calling for a vote.
Oh, no, I'm leaving it open for discussion, so we always do that before we vote. So I'm just trying to make sure, before we move forward with declining it, if there's any option here before anyone takes a vote here on this.
Well, I will just say from my part, so clearly I wasn't at the January meeting. When I received the transcript of the February meeting, some of the transcript didn't appear. It's a translation issue. I know it's translated via some automated process.
Right.
It didn't, most of the comments weren't reflected as to who said them. And I quite honestly didn't go back to look at the video. I don't know that I have a duty to do that. So that, I think really that's your question, is if I feel like that I can't vote because I don't know the context, even if I listen to the discussions, I can't know the details behind those discussions. So I can't say if what's written on paper will be accurate, because I think when we get to the February minutes, there's a couple items that we need to clarify in there. So I just want to know what our duty as a board member is to approve minutes that we weren't in attendance in, and given this is a unique situation, as Superintendent Walters has already said, 3 of us weren't there. He can't control when the governor decides to put us there. So it creates a bit of a pickle, and I'd like to know what our legal remedy is to that pickle.
And I'll just correct that. I also was not at the January meeting, so none of us were there, but I was comfortable with the transcript, reviewing the transcript, watching the video, and looking at the minutes, which I've already done.
But to answer your question, and I understand your concerns, and I understand the seriousness in which you are taking your duties as a board member, I do think that with respect to minutes, it's really not a verbatim transcription and representation. It's more an accurate statement of roll call votes and what the actual action is. So I don't think that you need to go to that granular level. Now, I think if you feel that it's appropriate, that certainly you're not prohibited from doing that in any manner. I think that your options would be to request any corrections that you deem appropriate as part of the minutes. I think an option that would be available to you is to abstain from any action in regards to those minutes. Your option certainly is to not approve those minutes, although I think that as a practical matter, minutes are more tied to proceedings, and I'll have to look a little bit more further into that, I don't think that there could ever be an instance where there's never going to be minutes of a proceeding because the parties don't agree. I think there's a mechanism by which something has to go into the file, but we can certainly delay as well.
I would think this, while unique to us in this room, is not unique to the planet. It has to have happened. So there has to be some case law and some, maybe even buried deep in some statutes of the state, how that's handled.
I think that's great. I'd be happy to look into that.
Okay.
And there is still, just to be clear, just to be clear, there is a motion and a second on the board. We can do further discussion, or we can do a vote.
What was the motion?
Well, the motion was to vote
To
down.
deny.
Deny.
Okay.
I would just ask you to modify that to vote on the minutes, and we can vote yes, no, or abstain.
I think I'll leave my motion as stands.
Okay.
So just to be, yes, the motion is to reject them. So if you vote yes, it will reject. No would not reject.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. Yes.
By rejecting means they're dead, or does it just mean they're safe for another day?
That goes to my point. I don't think in the nature of a meeting, you can just wholesale reject minutes. I think that you have to work to get it right if you don't believe them to be accurate.
In essence, they're tabled.
They will be tabled, correct.
Okay.
Could we table them and then we can explore these for the next meeting without, I mean, we could.
Superintendent Walters, I will make a motion to table this item on, let me correct that. I make a motion to continue, I think is what the words we like to use there. Yes, ma'am, I'm looking at you.
Well, let's back up just so we're being very precise. Do you, by virtue of that, are you withdrawing your original motion?
Yes, I do. I withdraw my original motion.
Okay.
So to be clear, your motion is?
My motion is at this point is that we table them.
Okay.
Continue them for the January 28th, 2025.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have,
So in this
Yes,
case,
sir.
a yes is to table. I don't know what a no would be, but, okay.
okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second on the board, and it is to table the minutes. Ms. Lennon, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes, ma'am.
Superintendent Walters,
No.
Hey, Mike.
My vote's no on that. Okay, so now, as you already mentioned, discussion and possible action on the minutes of February 27th. Board members, action or discussion there?
Superintendent Walters, I would make a motion that I guess that we would, subject to for correction, or I'm going to actually, let me back up. I make a motion to deny the minutes based upon the information that is in there is inaccurate.
Okay,
And I can go
yes, sir.
further through discussion.
Well, if possible, okay, sorry.
Second.
That was
Back
really
up, wait and
loud.
see if there's a
Yes, sir,
second.
because if we can correct them, could we correct and vote, I guess is the question, if there are any issues with it?
The more correct way to address minutes is to correct deficiencies and to vote on the corrections, not to
Well,
wholesale vote the minutes.
But could we do that today, or would that?
Oh,
would
of
we-
course, yeah,
Okay.
it's your minutes, yes.
But don't we need to deny these first and then go with the correction afterwards?
No, you would proceed to the correction, in my view. It has the same effect, it's not approved unless corrected.
I can word that accordingly then, under that particular instance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm flipping to them.
Okay, so let's start to the agenda itself.
This is just so everyone knows, this is 5B in your packets.
So if we'll go to page 4 under 5B, under accreditation standards, and under the actual motion at the bottom, I did not approve or recommend the standards. Page 4, sir.
Yes, sir.
Item 1, underneath item 1. It
Oh,
says Board
yep.
Member
Yes,
Dethridge
sir.
moved to approve the recommendations or request. I think the media would support that. And again, this morning, as we discussed, I did not move for that. Matter of fact, I was just the opposite.
Okay, so, yep, it's at the top of page 4. It says Board Member Dethridge moved to approve the recommendation. So, do we know, who made the motion?
I don't remember, it might have been me. It was after, so I think initially didn't, Mr. Dethridge move, I don't know if you made a motion or not, you asked for additional time.
That's correct.
There was discussion about potentially moving the item to the end of the agenda or skipping that item so that we could have time all day long to review standards. Ultimately, that wasn't going to be enough time, I think was.
That's correct.
Was your position. And so then we had some discussion about the process that then if the standards were approved that day, that they would go to the legislature. I think maybe you weighed in on that a little bit, I'm not sure. And then I think eventually I probably was the one that made the motion to approve the standards.
Sir?
I would, I don't know how to word this, but I would say if we're not sure who made these motions, that we maybe need to go back and correct that, look at that.
We could table this and come back, watch the video, present the minute. We could do both minutes next board meeting.
So I don't know whether I want to, for right now,
I believe, I don't have it, but I believe there was something in the Oklahoman yesterday that somebody had gone back and listened to the audio on this subject. I don't know if anybody.
Well,
has
I mean, we would use the video, the transcript of the video and Ms. London's notes, right, to verify what actually happened.
Well, and I think this is part of my concern on the transcription. Many times when I was reading through the transcript, it was noting what was said, but it didn't note who said it, so, or it may be notated wrong. So I don't know how all that, apparently it knows your voice because it had you, I think, accurately on all your comments, but between around the table it did.
part of the issue I also have with this, I'm sorry, Chris, is it doesn't reflect the discussion that actually went on that day. So it really, this may go back to board attorney referring to earlier stating that it's not maybe the action of happening. But I think for me, for the minutes, I would like to see that was reflected in our minutes, that there was discussion about that and that I had asked for more time and that some of this stuff I just don't feel like is truly representative of what happened that day. So the integrity of the whole document at this point, without those things being in there, I don't feel comfortable just tabling it. I feel like it really needs to be more accurate of what happened that day. So, for example, Superintendent Walters, I would expect the next meeting that we see your agenda, we see your statement in there that there was discussion about the topics that you brought up this morning. I mean, I expect that to be in there for the minutes. I don't know, maybe I'm out of line, and I apologize if I am, but I just think that if we're going to say that this is the minutes of the meeting, that we need to have the minutes of the meeting. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's one person's opinion.
I agree. As a matter of fact, I may go down here, but on behalf of my fellow board members, just as a matter of transparency, I would like the minutes to reflect that the board members, when we were voting on the standards, that we did not know that we were voting on changed standards from what was posted for public comment. I can ask these people if they agree or not.
I would go along with that, Mike. Superintendent, or Tenny? Board Member Tenny.
So just to be clear, you want the minutes to reflect a commentary of your inner dialogue
No,
on that
that's-
day?
No, the minutes are to reflect what happened, and what happened at the meeting is several board members voted on something they did not know had been changed from the public comments, and that is fact. I mean, you can say we're not telling the truth, but we are. That's the fact. And you can ask these fellows.
I do want to say something about that. So I'm not going to feel comfortable approving minutes that reflect things that happened or were expressed after the meeting. So the minutes are a reflection of the agenda items, the actions proposed on the agenda items, and the actions taken. So I did not know during the last meeting or the last time that we met that you all were confused about what was in the standards because, and I think this is just something you learn when you've been on the board a while, you're going to get information and comments and all kinds of things from all sorts of outside places. So it's really important to review the materials that are actually provided in the packet officially from the department that match the agenda items so you know the actions that you're being asked to take or not take. So, and I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody for not, I'm not saying you haven't done that or you're not unwilling to do that or something, but it's kind of a learning, it's a lesson learned, right, going forward. It sounds like a lot of it was a matter of timing, but I don't feel comfortable putting things in the minutes that weren't expressed or happened at the meeting that we would have known about then. If you could put it in these minutes, that there was a whole discussion about, the minutes for this meeting, that there was a whole discussion about what you knew or didn't know, with respect to the standards, but I don't want to put it in the minutes for the meeting where the standards were approved, if that makes any sense.
Did you know the standards were not the same as those that had been posted?
I know that every time we post standards for public comment, there are changes to them based on what was taken up in the public comment. So I review the official version that I'm being asked to vote on.
So you read that? You read
I
that
read
for each one, so the 12 hours prior to us getting that? You
I
read that, you read both documents within the 12-hour period?
I read all of the standards that we voted on.
Congratulations, you're probably one of the speed readers.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well, I mean, it's not, it's not something like that. It's that I've been on this board for a long time through multiple administrations, and the bottom line is there's a whole lot of movement in the 48 hours before a meeting, and so I have gotten used to the fact that, and I don't love it, I've asked, is there any other way we can do this? But I've gotten used to the fact that I have to be able,
Try searching in the Apple Watch app on your phone.
Even Siri says we need help reading the
I guess
documents.
so. I've gotten used to the fact that it's going to be a lot of, it's a lot of reading right before the meeting happens, and I know that.
And I think we learned a lot through that process that,
Yeah.
we're going to have to do that,
Yeah.
which is not a problem as long as we now know that we cannot rely upon what was given. We have to double check it. We now know that.
Well, what was given that you were asked to vote on is what we voted on. So
And you're right, we did.
I think you can rely on what's in the packet. I think you can rely on what you're being told is the action item that you're being asked to consider. But then, yeah, you have to read and decide for yourself whether you agree with what was presented. And this is not the first set of standards that I've been part of. And the process is always this, and that predates this administration.
How about this? We can entertain either tabling them or whatever motion is. We can bring back both minutes. We can do a more detailed description of the discussion leading up to the vote, present those to you all and see if that's a more accurate, or if you feel better about the additional context being provided. Is that,
I would personally appreciate that.
I would personally appreciate that as well.
okay? Yeah. Do we need a vote to table, and then we can transcribe more thoroughly the discussion that led up to the votes, and then bring it back?
Yeah, similar
And,
to the
Bang.
January minutes. I think I heard it, but it wasn't formally made.
Well, I believe we did have a motion.
We have a motion on the floor. So I will amend my motion. I will make my motion to table this, to reflect more detailed discussion with the amendments of the name change on this to make it to where who actually made the motion, and not me.
Were there any other changes you wanted?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Well, we did want to put, well,
Do you want to-
Member Tenney spoke.
If you guys, we've discussed it. If you guys want to make a motion to hear the proposed amendment, I'm not going to, leave it to other board members.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I know we need to make some adjustments. I think your proposal was to table it. I think we should table it. I think you should present to Superintendent Walters or whomever you want the modifications that you've suggested. I just want more detail to the fact that it wasn't, they presented the standards, we voted, and we were off to the races. There were questions, there were concerns. I'd like for that to be documented, but I don't think we need to belabor this meeting with that information. But I would appreciate it becoming documented by you emailing that to you, Superintendent?
Yes, sir. Yep, you can email it to me, and it's usually good to CC Miss London, but I'll make sure.
Okay.
So let me try to summarize my motion, that we make the amendments, that we table this so that we can do the corrections that indicate the correct voting procedure, more detailed information in the minutes, and then also with Tenny's email to come back to us information. That would be my motion.
So I think I've got that. Are we good with that? So I'll second that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Ms. London, you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Van Den Hend,
Yes.
Ms. LaPack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
No. Okay. Well, let's move on to the consent docket, and I always start the consent docket this way. First of all, we've got board counsel, counsel of the agency. Would anybody reach out to pull anything off of the consent docket for a separate vote that you're aware of?
No.
No?
No.
No, okay. No matter if it's right now, if there's something you want off the consent docket, always let us know. It's usually in these bucketed categories, and you can see through the documents you've got, it's usually a long list of things like waivers. It's usually a long list of approvals that we do yearly. And so we try to give you some summary documents there that some of you had asked about there to sum up kind of how much is in each district, what are the numbers that we're looking at. I always try to flag for you if something's abnormal, right? If there's a district that all of a sudden, why are they asking for this many waivers, and is there an explanation? So if we get things like that, we ask the district, okay, is there some extenuating circumstances here? So that's the first. That's why you're seeing this list there of all these individuals that are asking for that provisional certificate, the emergency cert. And, frankly, what we're looking at, and I expect this to be similar to next board meeting, is as districts are making their decisions on personnel for next year, they're actively seeking out, do we have a certified teacher? If we don't, well, we might need to renew an emergency cert. So always March, April, and you obviously, we'll get some over the summer as well, because as districts kind of look and they make decisions on personnel. So that's the information you've got in front of you here. And again, I did want you to see the numbers just so you have some context there of what we're looking at. So on that, I'm sorry, it's not numbered, but from that packet, we've got kind of the production report for you of how quickly we're producing certificates, but then also we've got this document of school year to date summary by area. And so you can see, elementary ed is where a lot of the emergency certs come from. Obviously, that spans, nearly 6th grade levels, so that's a big chunk. But you can also kind of look through there and see these shortage areas. And this is kind of when we look at these targeted programs like signing bonuses and things like this. This is the data that, again, it's real-time data. It's always interesting at the end of the year, who's going where, what are you seeing districts? So I'm going to be presenting this to you a lot of the next few months to see, and again, we try to be aware of what are other states doing. Are they doing something for math teachers? So do we need to do something? Things like that.
Superintendent Walters, there was a letter, which there was actually several, and I'm not sure if this is the spot that I need to ask this, so I'm going to just jump in here. That was asking for reduced hours for accreditation. This is not the part of that, correct? Or is the consent docket? I just want to make sure of that.
No,
Further on
sir.
down, correct? I just want to make sure that I understood that.
This should be on, this is 7.
Okay.
7 is the waiver on the school day.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. We try not to put that under the consent docket. Sometimes alternative ed programs we do because they do a modified schedule, and I'll always flag that for you if they pop up. But the school day, if a district asks for a waiver of the school day, we try to put that in its own separate, and we ask the districts if you want to come in and present, because those usually are very unique cases. Yes, sir.
Am I correct in that we're actually doing this for March and April? So are we combining those in one vote, or? 'Cause there were two
Yes, sir.
separate documents, I believe.
Yes, sir. And it's my understanding, board counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, but since we've got it under a consent docket, can we do this with one vote for 6A would approve all of A, but it wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it would lump in both or anything under that consent item, correct?
Yes, as long as it's clear that you're voting on all of the items listed on the agenda. But yes, Mr. Manahan, this is a combined, and if you look at the agenda, it shows March action A and then April action C. Do you see that where it breaks them out?
I do, and then, so there's action B, which is the mobile panic alert. So we're saying at this point, because I think we're gonna have some dissension on that, but we would be voting on all three unless we choose to do otherwise.
Correct.
Okay, and so,
I'm going to make a motion that we do those individually then.
yeah,
A, B, and C.
I'm okay with A and C because they're the same, like items
Okay.
for 2 months.
I'll make a motion that we vote on A and C
Okay,
together.
I'll second that.
I'm moving to approve those.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to approve 6A, 6C, and we'll pull B out. We'll talk about B separately. Okay?
Yeah.
Do we have any other?
I just have a question. When we approve an emergency certification, is that for a one-year period, for a school year, for a semester? What is the,
So this right here is a 1-year provisional senior certificate. In the event they're unable to hire, only after those, and I probably should have read that to you just to be clear. These districts have documented that they have done all of those steps before they submit these to us. So they have actively posted, they've actively looked for a teacher with a certification, they've gone through that. Now they come to us and it is a 1-year provisional. Yes, sir.
so based on what you said, these are most likely folks that they're wanting to hire for the next school year?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And by the way, just to be clear, all of the same background checks, all of that still apply. So the emergency cert doesn't preclude those things from happening. So all the processes of when you onboard staff all apply the same. We just grant them the extension of, they're not certified in the traditional sense, but we will allow them that waiver for an additional year. But just to be clear, all the background checks are done, all of that type of onboarding process is followed.
And I'm sorry, could I ask one more question?
Yes,
On
absolutely.
the school year-to-date summary information.
Yes, sir.
So it's got educators requesting emergency, total educators with prior certs, total educators renewing. So is that additive? So we have 6,000 emergency certified teachers.
Good question. What we've got here, the number should be, so the prior certs you've got there, so what they're looking for is an emergency cert into an additional field, right?
Okay.
Renewing emergency, it's been granted to them before, they're asking for a new one. And then 4,000, look, there might be some exceptions to that, but for the most part, these are gonna be people that it's their first emergency cert. Now, again, there can be exceptions. Somebody could have had one a few years ago and they come back. They could be, so that could be the case, but yes, sir. Overall, yes. With those kind of caveats, yes, sir.
So we have 5,000 to 6,000 emergency certified teachers.
I believe that to be true, yes, sir.
Clearly not your fault, but it's alarming.
You know, and I think it's a good thing for us to continue to look at moving forward. And I think, you know, again, the next few board meetings, I think some of these data points, and we can continue to give clarity around it too of where, right? Where are the shortage areas? Where do we see the continued complications? And kind of digging into that. And that's why we try to do kind of this more targeted approach. Appreciate the legislature. They've put more into teacher pay and the education budget than in state history. And so kind of figuring out ways that the agency can then complement that with some targeted, innovative tools and to go, hey, well, if this is a real tough area, again, rural math and science was last year that we just said, look, if we can give any aid here, this can help move the needle. So yes, sir, I believe we need to continue those conversations. And again, we'll probably have a similar conversation next month when we see those numbers and we see those data points.
Yeah. Thank you.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to maybe add that as an agenda item for next month so that we could actually talk about exploratory items and you could educate us on what SDE is actually doing in that area?
So you want an agenda item to
Just
discuss?
so you could discuss, tell us more about what you're doing, what SDE is doing. And I'm saying you as SDE, I apologize, I'm not trying to direct that, but SDE is doing to help school districts in that.
Yep, I'm happy to look at it. Happy to look at giving you guys an update and again, digging into these numbers more. And again, frankly, so next month will be May. Yeah, come May, we will have a much more accurate, here's kind of where we stand going into next year. So it would be, you would have more information at your disposal at that point, I think would be helpful.
I ask a question. What are walk-ins coming to that?
Walk-ins.
It's on page.
Yes, sir.
We've got the page certificates printed, walk-ins, scanned documents. It's under 6C, second page under 6C.
Yes, sir, let me find it. Second page under 6C. Oh, just, we ask for people to make appointments when they come in to get fingerprinted, things like that. It just is easier, helps us move it faster. And those are just folks that pop in.
Okay.
And again, we get a lot of traffic. Yes, sir, yeah. And again, we do keep track of that because we do some targeted emails, public awareness campaigns, and then so you can kind of track that and email traffic of what did they respond to, and then again usually if you're kind of walking in the lobby, there's just some teachers that come by of okay, we stopped by today to go ahead and get this done, and there are some. Give you more context. There are some districts that do some fingerprinting on site, but again, especially your smaller districts, they're coming up here. I do apologize. Is there a motion on the board? I'm trying to remember. There is a motion. Is there a second on the board? And it's to approve A and C, pull out B for a separate, okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Ms. Lennon, can you do a roll call for us, sir?
Certainly. Mr. Vandenham?
Yes.
Ms. LePack?
Yes.
Mr. Tenney?
Yes. Mr.
Dethridge?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. So that's 6A, that's 6C. Let's go back to 6B. I provided some information there for you guys on this, and so we can dig into this. The first page was kind of just our general, hold on a second. Yeah, the first page is the general RFI, request for information, how that works. I'm kind of walking through the dates there of when OMES posted it, things like that. So that's a request for information from folks that would provide it. The second page is the list of suppliers that submitted applications. I also put on there for you guys to see there were 3 that didn't meet the criteria, so they're listed there as well. But 16 met it. We followed, and if you'll look on the next document there is the memorandum of kind of explaining how we went through that process in accordance with statute. But that was, again, our best understanding of the legislative intent was we're not picking, we're allowing districts to choose, but we do want there to be a quality control aspect to this. So what we did was we tried to put together an RFI that said, okay, who meets the qualifications inside statute? We'll post it. We'll make sure districts are aware that these have all met the criteria. But from legislative intent, we felt that it was best for the agency not to choose one over the other, but to allow them all to be there available for the districts recommend. Again, not, we don't have a disagreement with it, but that was what we were trying to follow to ensure that the legislature, their will was carried out here with our actions.
Superintendent Walters, you know what my day job is, so I take this one a little more personal. And before I make a motion, I want to understand, you're aware of Executive Order 2023 that Governor Stitt has already selected, RAVE, that 97 and some change % of PSAPs and schools use. And his executive order, I believe, is still standing with that vendor. And I'm just curious, well, let me go back to
Yeah,
some concerns, too. Concerning that if you have a 911 center that is receiving 5 different options of the vendors that you selected, that's a nightmare for that individual telecommunicator operator. I think, really, I'm trying to have a little bit of non-discussion here, because I think the executive order really puts a squash on this to say that it's already been determined, and that my mind just went blank on the law.
Sure.
I want to say it's
Alyssa's law.
Alyssa's law that actually decides who's actually paying for that, and I think the executive order says the state's paying for it, and so we wouldn't be punting that back to the schools. The state's already paying for that. So with that information at hand, I'm going to make a motion that we decline this.
Okay.
Because it looks like to me that it's already been handled by the executive order.
Okay.
Can somebody tell me what the executive order says?
Sure. I will be more than happy to hand you my phone. Bet.
I'm going to rely on the guy that does this for a living and second the motion.
Well, while she's reading that, what was the intent if this is already in place and it looks like we've identified a list of qualified suppliers? So what was the intent of moving this forward? Clearly, it seems to make sense that we have this on our campuses, but
Correct.
I just, given what Mr. Deathridge just said, I'm not sure I understand what we're trying to accomplish if it's already set in law and the state's paying for it. So have all these other vendors, has the Department of Education vetted those and telling the schools you can use them? But
I don't believe there's been any communication with the 911 coordinator, Lance Terry. Is that correct? I mean, when I spoke to him this morning, he said there's been no communication with him on this.
I don't know. I mean, we went through OMES to do the RFI, so we've been working with the governor's team at OMES to do this for about a year now. But
I might be open to further discussion, but because of that, I made the motion that I did, and I think, well, there's always room for discussion, but did I hear a second? I don't know if there was.
Which part of this order is applicable to what we're talking about?
The executive order,
The whole thing?
the whole thing.
Am I looking at the wrong?
Maybe you are, but this is it. It's talking about school public safety. I'd have to go back here and read through the whole thing, but it talks about the 911 system, the button, the Amber Alert Committee, all of that. So until we have either more information, I'm just going to make a motion that we cancel this with further discussion. If it comes back later on, that's fine, but for right now, until we reach out to Lance Terry, Commissioner Tipton, and we work through that.
Can we hear from the,
Not to approve it, or?
I'm asking you not to approve it. My motion is not to approve it.
And I don't want to interject as counsel, but in looking at this, these are being made pursuant to Oklahoma Statute 5-149.4. It's called Alyssa's Law.
Correct.
And it's a mandate that the State Board of Education shall adopt a list of approvals.
And we
And
want
I'm
to
not
do that.
familiar- And I don't mean to interrupt, I'm not familiar with Governor Stitt's meeting and in the face of a statutory duty passed by the legislature. I think that it may be more prudent to table it so everybody can look at this.
And I'm fine with that, because I obviously don't want to do something wrong. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is protect the kids, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is make sure twofold. Want to protect the kids, and I want to make sure that the telecommunicators that are receiving that information aren't looking at 5 different individual screens, whereas it's just the one screen that they're already looking at. And we already have 98% of those folks on board, 97 and some change percentage on that. So I just want to be careful not to bring something new into the system that would complicate things. So I'm fine tabling it. I'm fine with that. That would be my motion, is that we table it then. I make a recommendation.
The substance, and I totally understand that. I just know we've been presented with an executive order from the governor, which has a different authority than the Oklahoma legislature, that looks like there's some overlap or whatever. And the only reason I bring it is I think it's probably something that needs to be looked at.
Thank you for correcting me on that. And I would just say that I amend my motion that we table this.
And I would like to add into the discussion, we went through this process, and again, my first comment, I'm not gonna weigh in on kind of the actual policy itself. Number one, we did this to follow state statute. The legislature prescribed it to us. They chose this. I know there was a robust debate on, do we choose one, do we not? And so they I think you said shall. I mean, when we see the shall language, we move forward to the best of our ability. And so that was why we did what we did, went through the RFI process. And the second part is, I do have concerns of if we push this down the road, we are looking at a potential of, again, to your point, you're correct. We have not communicated to districts yet. That needs to go through the board for you all to approve it. We're not going to communicate to them options here until that goes to the board. So that will delay that correspondence with districts on whether they're going to purchase whatever panic button they choose. So I just do want the board to be aware of that.
I don't know if there's a way we could get some kind of information on this today, but my understanding is it's already being paid for by the state. So until that, I don't think we actually have anything that is, the last thing I want to do is hurt our kids. So hear my heart on that. That is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that we have 2 mechanisms going down 2 different paths and not communicating. That is my intent. I just want to make sure that we're talking to the right people and that we have full participation from several different agency heads that we're working at on that.
Does the statute have a deadline for compliance by the board? Because we've run into that issue before. It looks like I'm not sure, because I don't know all the background here, but it looks like that executive order was maybe in 2023. The statute maybe was in 2024. We've run into, and obviously then I think that the statute trumps the executive order, but we can talk about that a different day, unless the statute has some kind of deadline that we have to implement something before the end of session, because we've run into that issue on statutes before, and I'm not familiar with the statute enough to know if it had a deadline.
And I have a version of it in front of me, but I can't represent if it's true and accurate to the statute books, but it says beginning with the 2024-25 school year, each school district in this state shall implement a mobile panic alert system. This system shall connect to emergency systems and furthermore integrate with public safety answering point infrastructure. And then the second point said the State Board of Education shall adopt a list of approved mobile alert systems. At minimum, the approved school security alert and response system shall do these certain things. So the statute, as I read it, prescribes that this board shall adopt a list of approved vendors for the 2024-25 year, which, if I'm mistaken, is this year.
Right.
I do believe the funds that are allocated for the future require this as part of it. That's my understanding of the rave was used. The legislature chose a new route. There was a robust discussion. They had a lot of different kind of reasons for that, but I believe that this would be for the funds for this next school year. That's what I understand it. Funds run out in the year, this for next school year. Yes.
My concern also, and I'm going to use 2 schools here as an example, and I'm not picking on them. They're not in my district, so I'm just picking 2 out. I'm going to pick Newcastle and Owasso because they're on 2 different ends of the world. If they were in the same school district and they went with 2 different vendors, that's a total nightmare for a telecommunicator operator. So I think there's probably some language that we need to go back in and look at that, is that maybe it be done by district, maybe it be done by, if it's an RFP for the school district as a whole or for the county, because the county is usually the one, there's some municipalities that are the PSAPs. But I think that really could be further discussed, maybe with Director Terry on trying to figure that out, exactly how to make that work.
Are those things that the board has the authority to do, or is that something the legislature would have to do?
Look, I'm going to go back to, the legislature had a robust debate, had a robust discussion on whether they want to move forward with a single vendor or do this. They chose to do this and move forward this way, so that's what we followed was legislative intent. I try to be very cognizant of that, try to continue to ensure that what we're doing is in line with what the legislature has asked, and they did discuss kind of, to the best of my recollection, I can't remember all the arguments here, but I do seem to remember a pretty robust conversation around, do we want to pick one, or do we want to allow districts to choose one, and it's kind of where they ended up.
Superintendent Walters, this may be a little bit unorthodox, but that would be typical of the board meetings as a whole now. Could we ask your legislative liaison to maybe make a few phone calls during the meeting that's going on and see if we could get some clarification on that? Is that, because what I don't want to do is, I don't want to hurt the kids, and that's not my intent. But in that way, maybe we're still in good standing. We can make a few phone calls while this meeting's going on.
She should be listening right now. So hopefully that's going on. I will double check that in just a second. But there's no, we could kick this to the end of the agenda.
Yeah, we just put
Okay.
it at the heel of it.
Okay.
Thank you, Superintendent
Okay, no,
Walters.
thank you. So we don't have to do anything. Okay, so we'll just not do any action. Let's get some more clarity there. And I can step out here in just a second and be sure that is moving. Yeah, I hope she's listening. But, okay, apologize. Let me get back to, so we're on 7, correct? I'm sorry, I've spilled coffee all over my stuff here, of course. So 7A is a request. This was the one that you mentioned earlier. This is the request of a statutory waiver for authorization for districts to implement a school year calendar that includes fewer than 165 days when school is in session and classroom instruction is offered. We always reach out to these districts. I'm not sure which of these districts are here with us today. If you are here, please come to the boardroom. And okay, there we go. We have some of them here. So, and just to give the new board members context, so if you flip in your binder to 7A, thank you all. I'll introduce you one. We'll just do one and then stop and one another. Thank you guys for being here today. We very much appreciate that. I will say, I always appreciate when districts are willing to come here. They got a lot going on. You're in the middle of testing. I'm sure that's got some headaches going your way, but they've submitted here a document for you to consider. We always ask for, again, what the legislature wants to see here is their rating. They want to see how are they doing academically as you guys consider these things. So happy to walk you through that. They do grant the board the ability to grant a waiver. And again, I will tell you in the past, again, you choose to make this determination how you see fit as an individual board member. We've had some board members that feel very comfortable if academic success is there to give them the flexibility. We've had board members in the past that are very much, hey, it's a high bar for me. And again, the legislature has given our board some discretion here to make that on an individual basis. So I do appreciate the districts are here, so we can look at this, but I always like to, let's let them tell their story. There could be something very unique there and a reason why you may want to grant it or you may not. And with everyone in the room, let's do one at a time. I'll call you up. And if you would introduce yourself and kind of give us a brief, and so I'll just prepare you. We'll do Bennington first. And we'll make it very informal where any board member, you want to ask a question anytime, let's just have a conversation if that works. Mr. Deathridge, did you have?
I was just going to say, point of order, you may need to take a personal minute to run out and check on that before we get started.
There you go, good call. I will go ahead, if you don't mind starting, I'm going to step right out. If you'll introduce yourself, we know each other. If you'll introduce yourself and start, I will be right back.
Hello, thank you guys. I promise I'll be quick this morning. Scott McCorson from Bennington, Oklahoma. No one probably knows where that is. We're way down on the Red River in southeast Oklahoma, about 25 miles east of Durant. So down on the Texas border, a long ways away from whatever we're talking about in here earlier. So also. My superintendent, Miss Pam Reynolds, is right over here, recent POE Merit Award winner, so she's the boss. I'm bragging on her. She's right over there. If you have anything to ask her, I just told her I'd try to be a good lieutenant and speak for us today. So we're asking for the waiver. I just jotted down a couple of simple things I wanted that I think are salient points that we wanted to talk about. First thing that I wrote down, which is relevant to you guys talking earlier today, is we think this is a local control issue. We're doing a great job at Bennington, and you guys, do you have in your packets, by the way, all of our data good? I know our State Department of Education, you guys have asked for a waiver from the United States Department of Education. We think this is along those same lines. We think this is a local control issue. I think the vast majority of Oklahomans are local control people, despite what else we may argue about. I think that's a popular issue. We think that's important here. Since if we weren't doing a good job, I wouldn't be here asking you to let us control it locally. I'd say, you guys tell us what to do better and we'll try to do it. But we're doing a great job. We've met those statutory requirements that Mr. Walters just mentioned, so we're qualified to get the waiver. I guess which takes me to my second point. We've had sustained success there at Bennington. We didn't just start doing well. I think in your packets you have data from like the last 3 years, I think, in there. We've been doing well for 11, 12 years. So we didn't just get good. We've been good since before I got there, I guess. Give Ms. Reynolds the credit for that we've been doing well for 11 or 12 years. And I think it's common sense. It's a quality over quantity thing. Going 4 days hasn't negatively affected. Of course, it's actually done the opposite. We were once, before Ms. Reynolds arrived, I wouldn't say a failing school, but we were doing poorly. They had a novel idea all those years ago, which is the new norm in Bennington. I mean, all of our parents, all of our stakeholders support it now. We've enjoyed the stakeholder satisfaction. I don't know if 4 days weeks work in Oklahoma City. I don't know if they work in Tulsa. I'm from a little bitty community way down in the corner of the state. I just know what works at our place, and I know what's popular at our place. I know what our local board wants to do at our place, and so we're just sort of humbly asking you guys to let our local board, if they choose to let us make that call and continue doing it. It's increased our effectiveness. I think motivation is, again, it's another common sense issue here. I think motivation plays a key, which brings me to my third point. Quickly here, I'll try to move quick. To be good, it's all about teacher recruitment and retention. You guys were discussing this earlier. We're only as good as our teachers. My teachers are driving through Durant, which is an awesome school and pays a lot better than everybody else. And we've got to get, my job is to be the principal at Bennington. We've got to get good teachers in front of my kids. And the way we can do that, this is the best tool we have at our disposal. We don't offer the money that those other districts do. Texas is right there. My sister's a professor at Southeastern. We were texting the other day. I think she told me, this goes back to something you guys were discussing. I think she told me they were graduating a grand total of 9 elementary ed and early childhood people. It was 40 or 50 every semester. And now we're at, and she told me she didn't think any of them were staying in the area. 0 of the 9 from our local teacher college are going to hang around and help us in Bryan County. So we're trying to compete, and this is a tool that helps us do that. So again, we're just sort of asking you guys if you'll give us the tools to let us keep doing what we're doing well and let us compete. We think we'll keep winning, and hopefully your package shows you that's what we've been doing. So
Thank you. Before anybody says anything, would you mind having Superintendent Reynolds come up there with
yes, sir, Ms. Reynolds.
Ms. Reynolds, I've been known to be a slow learner, but I think I heard a comment come out of here a minute ago was that you were a state award winner?
POE.
POE. Would you tell me a little bit about that and what you won? Or you were a state winner of what?
Of POE, and that's Professional Oklahoma Educators. It's a great group. It was actually founded in Bennington years ago by a superintendent that was there, but it's been years ago. So I don't even know the superintendent was there at that time or anything. So it's not like they just gave it to me because I was from Bennington, because that's not true. But it's a great organization. It comes up here, it goes to the Capitol. I mean, they do great things for schools.
But you were superintendent of the year? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's the national merit.
National merit.
Or, well, I might be wrong, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oklahoma Merit Award
I
winner
voted for you for national.
for administrators. Yes, sir.
Well, I hate to say this, but I wanted you to brag on yourself, and that's what I'm
Thank
asking you to do.
Thank you.
And
I'm not very
thank
good
you.
at that.
That's all right. That's why I called you up, because I knew you wouldn't come up there. But I just want to say thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, thank you. We hope
Sorry,
that
board,
you.
for detaining
And
you.
we hope that y'all consider our deal, because if we lose teachers, that means our scores are gonna go down. If we have to get a bunch of emergency teachers, there are new teachers that, it affects us. So I hope that you'll consider our request and let us do what we do best.
And thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for your service to our
Thank
state
you,
and the
yes,
kiddos. Thank you
yes,
guys.
thank you, because I know it's not easy all the time.
To Mr. Deathridge's point, I will jump in, and she is fantastic. And so,
Thank you.
yeah, those, and she doesn't brag on herself, so I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, thank you.
Can I ask,
That's too
can I ask a
kind.
couple questions?
Too kind.
And these will be questions for everybody. Some of them were covered. But reading through this, I assume that it's all 4-day school week is why, so I'm assuming, and that's what I heard here. I also heard what I also assume, that it's a recruitment tool for teachers. So if everybody could make sure and say that. The other thing that I want to understand is, so every year you come and ask for an exception to this state law.
Yes, sir.
Does your board vote every year?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
They
so,
approve our calendar.
okay, so that's just what I want to know, because I have a fond place in my heart for rural schools, being on the Russo board for 4 years, and I was banging on them to create more teachers, and it's hard. I get all that. So just, do what you need to do, but I want to make sure I support local control, and I want to make sure that all the boards are approving, not
Yes.
just because it's not brought up again, but every year saying, yes, this is working and this is what we want to do.
Yes, sir, they do.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could add one thing, and again, I do want to be clear, I think the superintendent principal are doing a great job. I do want to make sure that this is a 165-day waiver. So, practically speaking, they could stay a 4-day, and they're gonna, and I'll give you the opportunity to kind of push back on this a little bit, but they could stay a 4-day school week and meet the 165-day threshold. They would have to go longer. Now, I think the superintendent would tell us, well, if we're going 2 or 3 weeks longer than the other districts, that could be a problem. But I do want to respect the statute in that the legislature's concern was not that they don't want 4-day weeks. Their concern was, we don't want schools going less than 165 days unless there are some extenuating circumstances. We want to give some discretion for the board. But I do want to flag that for you all. And again, and if you want to add to that, you can. But I think, am I kind of accurate? And the position would be, well, we could, but
We
then that could
go
hamper.
longer, but then the schools around us wouldn't be going longer, and so then our teachers would still give us some.
And
issues
also,
with that.
Mr. Walters, we do meet the 1,080 hours,
Yes, we
the
do.
original requirement, which
Yes.
I thought was a brilliant, and we do meet that. So
Yes,
we're not trying to get waived out of that.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, because that was my other question I forgot.
Yes, sir.
You're not cutting short the amount of instruction, you're just compressing it
So
to
to
4
clear-
days.
We
Either-
actually go longer days,
Right.
like our days longer.
Okay, that's what I was going to, either superintendent, you just go more hours per day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And again, you see why these, I mean, a lot of factors go into this, so I just always want to try to kind of flesh that out. Is there anything else that you all
If you
would like
want
to?
to look at our packets, our high school is in the top 23 of the state. I mean, so, and we're above the state average and everything, and our scores are great.
I do want to brag on them on this too. There's a little note here about CSI, TSI, or ATSI, and these can kind of, acronyms in education get thrown around a lot, but those are all the schools that would be designated as falling into the bottom 5%, and that could be in any category. I mean, that could be in attendance, that could be in math score. I mean, so they have none of their sites in any of those. So that's another great example of, and I'm not saying that, we have some districts that may have a site fall into that. It happens, and like I just laid out, there's a lot of ways you could actually fall into
Yes,
those.
yeah.
And having none is that's a really good thing that you put on here as well. I want to make sure the board is aware of.
So how many days below the 165 are you asking?
We have 151.
151.
And do you use virtual days for any of those?
We do, and that will, of course, depend. I know the legislature's working on that. So we'll see. We have it down at 8 virtual days. We'll see what that.
You have 8 right now?
We have 8 right now. Now, we're going to be respectful of we're going to comply with whatever the rules are, but we have 8 right now.
Okay. Okay. If there's no more questions, are we good to kind of put a, let's, are you all good with, let's hear from all the schools and we can come back and take a vote individually or holistically? That's usually the way we've done, okay. Thank you. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Next, we've got Glencoe Public School.
I'm Jay Reeves. Like Mr. Walter said, I'm from Glencoe Public Schools. I've been the superintendent the past 3 years. Prior to that, I was at Jennings with Mr. Metter, and we operated on a 4-day calendar week, and we had the waiver back then, and I've continued that at Glencoe, which they had when I came in. We've been granted this every single year, and we continue to meet every standard. And I just wanted to clarify that if you don't meet any of these standards, you're already above and beyond by meeting it. We can't even apply for this unless we meet every one of these standards. And we have every single year at each of our sites. It wouldn't make sense in a small district for me to do a different calendar for my elementary and my high school. So if I didn't meet it at any of the sites, I wouldn't do that. And so we do meet that at every site. And as mentioned before, the number one reason we do this is for teacher recruitment and teacher retention. In my 3 years, I know you've seen thousands, and that may blow some of your minds, of emergency certified teachers. I've never had to apply, knock on wood, but at some point I probably will, but I've never had to apply any of my teachers for an emergency certification, and that is due simply to this waiver. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to expand.
How many days are you asking for?
158 is what we currently go, and I had 5 virtual days this year.
And
Sorry, you said
are-
158, just make sure I heard you. Yes,
158.
sir, thank you.
And are you, I'm assuming, still meeting the number of instructional
Yes,
minutes?
yes, we have to go over the 1080 hours
Okay.
to meet this requirement.
Okay. It's impressive, no emergency certified teachers, yeah, that's very impressive. Any other, I'll kind of point out the same things, they don't have any schools on those acronym lists there. Again, to the superintendent's point, they meet all the qualifications, and it is up to the discretion of the board whether you want to grant the waiver. So, again, he's done a great job. Known him last couple of years. I think he does a great job with the district, and you can see it through the scores, and also
Thank you.
the retention is I think that's a great thing to point to as well.
That's
The teachers go,
exactly
say.
why we do it.
And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Superintendent, your local board has approved this?
Every single year, yes, correct.
Oh, Superintendent, if you would, I forgot about this. Community support. We talked just a little bit. Community support says you've reached out to community.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We talk to them every year to get feedback, and the number one indicator on learning, academic achievement in the classroom is a good teacher. I don't care what curriculum you have, if you don't have a good teacher, and we aim to get the best, and we'll replace the ones who aren't, and it's a lot easier to do that when we have Fridays off. Another big deal with the small districts, big districts, my 4th grade teacher can go meet with 5, 6, 7, 8 other 4th grade teachers and get ideas, share lesson plans. We have one grade for every single grade. There's just one class. So on Fridays, our teachers are willing to come up. They're willing to work on lesson plans. They're willing to collaborate. We don't have to force them to do that. These are outside of their contract hours, and they come up every weekend. I can go up there and I'll have teachers up there working. So they're not sitting at home doing nothing. They're taking advantage of this. It fits their schedules. It fits the lives of our community.
Excellent. If there's no other questions or comments, thank you very much, Superintendent. Great to hear from Glencoe Public Schools. Can we do Harmony Public Schools next?
Good morning. I guess we're almost afternoon now, so good afternoon. Brian Walker, I'm the superintendent at Harmony Public School, superintendent, principal, substitute teacher, bus driver, and
Wear all the hats.
many other hats that we wear around the small school. Harmony is a K-8 district in Atoka County. We're surrounded by Toka, Tushka, Caney, Stringtown to the north. So we have several school districts around us. If you had a chance to look at our data, we are, I feel like, a high-performing school. We have been for the past several years. Just to answer some of the questions that have come up, as far as my community support, when we first went to the 4-day-a-week, I was scared, and this was 8 years ago. I was scared we were going to lose kids, just for the simple fact it was new in our area, kind of one of the first ones to go 4 days a week. We did it for financial reasons at the time. So long story short, 8 years later, we've grown from about 195 as far as student enrollment to over 255 kids now. Teacher recruitment, I've not had to hire many teachers because my teachers don't leave. I've got high-performing teachers, great teachers. I've had 2 that have over 35 years of service that are retiring this year. One of the first questions in my interview of the person that I'm interviewing is, are you going to be a 4-day-a-week still? And I'm like, well, it depends. You know, I mean, that's in the process, but that is a good recruiting effort. As far as the board, yes, we have voted on the waiver. We haven't voted on our calendar yet because we're kind of waiting to see where we go with that. But real quick, we go from 8 to 4. We have, my teachers love it. I have a math teacher. She's watching. She is one of the top-notch math teachers in our county. She's been recruited by every school in the county. She loves it where we're at. We were both against going to 4 days a week. When we went to 8 to 4, it gives our core classes an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. So our reading, math, science, ELA classes in the morning are all an hour and 15 or an hour and 20 minutes. So we get an extra long period for our core classes. So then in our afternoon, we do our computer labs, band. It's allowed us to start a band program, which we actually received our first superior in the OSSAA in the middle school competition this year. It was a big deal. Our drum line went to Dallas a few months ago and competed and won a 3rd place in a Dallas competition. So, you know, it's allowed us to do some things that we probably wouldn't have time to do if we were going to 3 o'clock. So, open for any questions you might have.
I keep asking the same question, sorry. How many total days?
155.
And how many virtual?
8.
And you still meet the instructional minutes?
Yeah, we're at 1,150 hours.
Okay,
is
so
what.
you're over.
So we're well over the 1080, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will point out, like I did with the other districts, no school sites on any of the list, good report card grades. So appreciate you, Superintendent, being here today
Thank you.
and giving us that context. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've got Jennings Public School up next. Jennings Public School.
My name's Derek Metter. I'm superintendent at Jennings. We're located in Pawnee County. We're also a pre-K-8 dependent district. This is my 4th time to come before the board for the waiver. That exhibits sustained excellency because you don't even get to apply for the waiver if you're not meeting certain things. I'll start by answering your question. 156 days. In anticipation of 758 being passed, we have no virtual days built into our calendar for next year if this waiver is approved. I'm going to reiterate we've been 10-day week or 4-day week for over 10 years. And the biggest thing is teacher recruitment and retention. I lost no teachers last year. I lost 1 the year before. I don't anticipate losing any this upcoming year. And that's also with no emergency certified teachers. It works for our community. Our board does approve everything, and they are on board, and they're on board because our parents approve that. We do a survey every 2 years. This year we did it in December, and it was 98% of our parents wanted to continue operating on this calendar. It works for us. I'm going to reiterate what somebody else said. I don't know that it would work for other communities, but it works for us. And if I have a teacher leave, I usually have 8 to 10 teachers knocking at my door wanting to get there, and the first thing that they ask me is about the 4-day week every single time. There's also cost-saving measures there. If we had to move to 5 days, it would cost us additional dollars for transportation, child nutrition, and support employees as well. But it works for us, it's worked for us, and I'm asking you to continue to support that. I do have letters, I think it ended up in your packets, I'm not sure, from both my senator, it's also Mr. Reeves at Glencoe, Ms. Justice at Morrison, Senator Hall, and Representative Burns oversee that. They support this, and they wrote letters of support on our behalf that I think Mr. Reeves had it added to the packet. But we do have legislative support for our districts because they recognize them as high-performing schools in the area. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a representative from Morrison Public School as well.
Hello, my name is Lori Justice. I'm the superintendent at Morrison Public Schools, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Mr. Metter said as far as the same benefits that we have that help our district. First of all, we also survey our community, and we have 98% of our community that loves the 4-day school week. Teacher retention and recruitment is a big thing. We are located about 20 miles north of Stillwater, so we do get applicants from Oklahoma State. But one of the biggest questions every time is, are you guys on a 4-day week? Our instructional day is longer, so we surpass the 1080 rule. We go 1,148 hours, so we have 68 hours over the requirement because we go from 7:45 to 3:45 every day. As far as cost-saving measures, Morrison is a school district that has little to no gross protection revenue. So we solely rely on our state funding and from our ad valorem tax. That being said, this is a cost-saving measure for us too. For transportation, utilities, you name it, it helps us save in that area. But also, we are academically sound. Our elementary school was awarded the National Blue Ribbon this year. We are the only school district that was awarded that in the state of Oklahoma this year that is on a 4-day week that is a rural school. So we are very proud of that. We want to continue with that, and we just ask you guys to please just consider the waiver because it is very, very important to our district. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I actually have a question, which isn't so much related to the approval, but what are your kids doing on your 5th day when they're not in class?
So some of the days, I will tell you, we did have some virtual days built in this year. Looking at calendars for next year, based on 758, we've taken all virtual days out, okay? What they do a lot of times, we are out on Mondays, and we choose that because we encourage parents, teachers, take your kids to the doctor, take your kids to the dentist, because Fridays, doctor's office and dentist offices, like, you can't get those appointments. Right. And so that's why our chronic absenteeism rate is at 98%. Like, absenteeism isn't really an issue for us because we encourage those days. And so our kids, some days if we have virtual, which we don't, we had very few this year, we had 10 days, but we only counted them as half. So it was 5 full virtual days. On the calendar, it showed us 10, but we only made those count for a half a day. And so on those days, our elementary kids, they are home. Like I said, parents want this. It's 98% of our parents wanted that. But our high school students, junior high students, they're still having practice. They're still having activities. They're still involved. Our FFA is big. They are still in those contests and still doing the things that they need to do in their extracurriculars.
So extracurriculars run on your
Absolutely.
days. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Practices, contests, that we are still doing those on Mondays. Any other questions?
Thank you. Congratulations on the Blue Ribbon School. That's
Thank
a big
you.
deal. That's a big deal. Board, if you're open to it, we also added, these were the requests that were in for March. We also have, if you look at 6E, we have other districts that applied in April. Do y'all mind if we just continue going through that list so that while it's top of mind of this conversation, we can allow Antlers, Stonewall, Cottonwood, Roth to go ahead? Is there any objection? You all?
Actually, it's 70, right?
I'm sorry, 70.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's go ahead and hear from Antlers Public School. If Antlers, I didn't see. Okay, I about to say I didn't see the superintendent. Okay, I do want to make sure, though, that Antlers is on the 7 E, if you want to look through kind of their, so you've got a letter here from the superintendent. So he walks through that information. I do want you to kind of just see that. I do also want to point out, he put in there at number 4 on his waiver, talked about district financial savings, that it means that more funds can be spent on instructional days. During the shortened calendar of last year, he said it saved their district about $50,000, $47,000. So I thought that was a unique stat he put in here as well. They would implement a 157-day calendar. So as Board Member Lepak mentioned earlier, that there's kind of the district. They would still comply with the 1,080-hour limit. Their school day goes from 7:50 to 3:35. So kind of wanted to make sure wanted to present you the information as it was sent to us there. Any questions? I'm happy to represent kind of the application if helpful. And they do have the financial criteria, if you'll turn to that second page, of kind of where the cost savings came from. So. No questions? I'll go ahead and have Stonewall come up. I saw Stonewall here.
Hello, Greg Levelis from Stonewall School down in Pontotoc County. Just a little bit about us. We span about 200 square miles down there. Go into Cole County a little bit and Johnston County as well to the south. So really large school districts. So we see some savings there in our transportation costs with this reduced calendar. I did present our report card scores from last year. A little history there. This is our 9th year kind of on this modified compressed calendar. And then when the legislature put the 165 rule in, we did qualify the first year. Last year we missed it, and I would like to point out why. We had a growth piece in the elementary in that one site that prevented us from qualifying last year. I told our board, and I believed it then, and we've proved it, that was an anomaly. That D in growth in the elementary became a B, so we made significant strides there with that growth. So that's why I'm here again this year to respectfully ask for this waiver. Our calendar that our board did approve last Monday is 157 days, so 150 instructional days. We start around 7:35 and we end around 3:30, and that time allows us to accumulate nearly 5 days over when you consider the minutes and hours. So we have one emergency certified teacher. We've kind of taken the approach, and it does, I'll reiterate everything these guys have said, it really helps with recruitment. We've kind of taken the grow our own approach with our teachers. It's worked really well, finding that right person, that doesn't have the certification and growing them into where we need them. So we've been very successful with an art teacher, PE teachers. Just could go on and on how we've kind of used that strategy to fill our needs there. But so last year we weren't able to apply for the waiver. I did survey our staff. They come back at 90% favoring a modified compressed calendar. I did survey our community. It came back a 60% compressed, 20% not a traditional, and then a 20% that we're either way. So if you kind of combine the 60 and 20, we're at about an 80% approval rate on this compressed calendar. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the information. Again, the great test scores here, academic growth at a B, it's a great indicator there. And again, just to point out, I know that you mentioned it, but they plan to have a calendar of 157 days. So that's kind of that day mark. How many virtual? And I'm sorry if I missed.
0. And this year we didn't qualify for the waiver. We did 0 virtual days. If we were in class, we were in class. So we're proud of that. I think it works in some instances, and I'm not saying it's bad, but we chose not to do virtual days this year with the anticipation that they were going to go away. So
Sure.
This next calendar doesn't have any. I would like to point out, that 20% in our community that kind of spoke against this compressed calendar, we're looking at an option next year. So there's 33 Fridays that we aren't in session, and yes, our kids they're going strong on those days too with activities. But I worry about the little ones that are at home. Where are they going? and I think that was that 20%. So we're looking at those 33 Fridays of offering a Friday program. We're kind of, looking at cost and recruiting staff that would be willing to come up. So it is trying to kind of make the balance there happen, so.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions, discussion for the Superintendent? Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great job at Stonewall.
I did want to say one thing about that. I appreciate that effort and you mentioning that to figure out, school sometimes for some of our kids is not just about how many days the teachers want to be there, right? There are other reasons that they might need to be in the school building. So I would encourage anybody who's looking at these reduced calendars to look at what you guys are doing in that respect as well.
We're going to pilot and give it a shot. So.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, Superintendent. Next up, we have Cottonwood Public Schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Board, for allowing me to speak and allowing us to apply for the waiver. We have been, my name is John Daniel. I've been at Cottonwood 25 years. Started as an aide. So this is kind of personal to me because it's part of our culture and what we do. We've been a 4-day school week for close to 20 years. When we were a low-performing school, we were turning out on Fridays, getting waiver to turn out on Fridays to do staff development. Then it evolved into we got out every Friday, every noon on Friday and did staff development afternoon. There were years where they didn't allow us to do that. We had several years where they either didn't even allow the waiver to come forth or whatever. But over that, we've been a 4-day week most of that time. I have right now I have 79% transfer into the district. I have 100.
On that, just so everybody, 79% of their students don't live in the district. They come in to the district.
So my community is surrounded around my 4-day week because I've had an after-school program for going on 20 years. That after-school program is run to 5:15, 5:30. And so what we did, because we had an after-school grant for several years, we moved the school day to 4:30, which helped us fund only an hour after school. We could fund that out of general budget and then still be able to meet our requirements. We've been doing this 9 years, and so I went to my math teacher who'd been teaching 40 years, and I said, okay, Mr. Walker, what do you see? He said, I can't explain it. We did more math problems than I've ever did in my 40-year career. I said, what do you attribute that to? Because that is not what you hear, okay? So what do you attribute it to? He said, all I can say is when they leave here, they're mastered. When they get the time in, we're doing the modified model, like Mr. Walker back here, I don't think a relation, but anyway, where we do more instructional time in the morning. We use 15 minutes more, and then reduce our PE times and music times, and it's worked for us, okay? We've been a high-performing school for a long time, and so my community has revolved around this model, and I had to really tamp down my board president, who's a lawyer, not to come up here with me because I was afraid he would go off because he says this works. This is how our community operates, and so. I went to my reading teacher, reading specialist, been doing it 35 years. I said, no, they didn't even know I'd talked to the other, and I said, okay, I want you to tell me, what's your second grade graders doing? She said, John, I don't know what happened. We're writing paragraphs now. We're scoring better on our fluency. I said, what can you attribute to it? She goes, well, I've longer engaged each day. Instead of using that modified model where you get out at 3, you have a 45-minute class period with a 15-minute transition. We're having reading all morning, and so we're able to write. We're writing paragraphs, and so anyway, that's our community. That's what we do. And I've lost in 9 years that I know of. I've lost 5 students. One of them I lost twice. He was in foster care, left because they didn't have a room for him on a Friday, and then he came back and went to another. So anyway, My community's behind it. A board has voted a calendar, they're behind it. Actually voted 3 calendars this year. I've got one with our virtual days. I've got one without our virtual days, and I got one that y'all deny. So we've approved those in that order. So, so we're trying to be prepared. Our scores, I have 50% alternative certified teachers. So I have to build my own teachers, okay? Our scores are down. We've got an A and we've got a B in growth. I'm not happy, but I've got teachers who don't have the skills yet. And it takes time to get those skills, and I need those Friday meetings. I think I have 8, right now on my virtual calendar, I have 8 days virtual. There will be 4 to 6 of those. Usually I schedule 4, and then I end up scheduling 7. We usually end up having staff development on those days. So that's a day when the kids are not scheduled to be there. They're at school, they can interact. It is a problem for the little ones. I understand that, but we try to do nothing. We try to do no instruction on that Friday. It's all review, and so that review goes home. They've seen it, they've done it, they know they're. So we want to get up to that 90% mastery in those contents. So when they see that on Friday, it is a review of what they've already done, and so. I told you more than I know. Questions?
Superintendent, you mentioned the educational development or the continuing education on Fridays. What are you bringing in? Who are you bringing in? Talk to me what that looks like.
Okay. Right now, I have a literacy grant. Okay, it's a federal literacy grant. I have high scores because I have a lot of dollars being poured in my classroom. My per student capita is really high. And so that's going in. We're doing literacy development. We're bringing people in. There's been people in from the state. There's been people in doing science of reading.
So where are you finding these people? What resource are you going to get?
I'm pulling the people who's teaching the science of reading to the state. I pull them. I subcontract with some of them. A couple of them used to work for me. They're now subcontracted with the state. There's several of them have worked in the Department of Ed and in other, now they've moved into business models and everything, and sometimes I get them to subcontract outside their business models or whoever they're with, and so that's helped us. But it just takes time to bring a individual from, now I get people wanting to be a teacher over the 4-day week and their kids, but they're not certified. And so that's been a place I come in, it takes the right person, it takes the right mentality, and so I try to, I have to select the right person. Sometimes that's a lot of prayer and sweat and lose of sleep, but it still affects our scores. Because I'm a small school, I have 1 grade per classroom. And so we have to get back together, be on the same page for discipline, for that just helps us all over. And so.
So Superintendent, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So you are going to the state and asking for those independent contractors?
No. Well,
what I'm saying by that is
I have some contacts
you have
with
contacts
people
with
that.
SDE possibly.
My former superintendent used to be over reading here at the State Department.
Okay.
So we have contacts of people with, but it costs dollars. But I got this grant, so I have the dollars. You can find the people if you got the dollars.
There you go. I hear you.
Okay,
we're on the same language.
Okay,
But
all
we're
right.
using independent contractor business models to come in and do these leadership classes, continuing education classes. Is
Yes,
that what I'm
yes. The letters training, some of it's not been called letters training, but we've done all that all the way through up to 8th grade. I got 6 kids in, and I'm a small school, so these percentages irk me, okay, because I did score good, but I got 6 in, can't read, can't talk. The oldest one has kept the little ones, and he speaks his own language, and these are just Americans who he babysit the other 5, and so they speak what he speaks, which is not English and not anything else we know. So we're teaching them not only to talk, but we have to teach them to read. And so 6 out of my 140 is a big deal. Those got sent to me by DHS. They moved into our district because we can help them. Last year I had 2 that the judge ordered in the court to send them to Cottonwood. And so, and they're not easy to deal with. So we have to do things differently. We have to approach things a whole different way. And it's hard work. Teaching is hard. And teachers are not out there, haven't had an application in years. Doesn't matter if I'm 4-day week. I don't get applications.
Superintendent, I would say thank you for, it may be difficult, it sounds like, but it sounds like to me that you're putting the time in to educate these kids. And I just want to say thank you for that. I realize it may be difficult, and it may hurt you on a score.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion for
Well,
a whole nother day.
I know that. The kids are first. If we
I
get
appreciate you
growth.
putting those kids first and helping them get what they
I
need.
just don't want to drive bus anymore. I've had a bus route for a year and a half, and that's
So,
just,
as amazing as that sounds, I think it's even more amazing. So if you type in Cottonwood Public Schools, they've had a book written about them, a national best-selling book. They have had all kind of national attention given to them because of exactly what the superintendent just laid out to you today. It is a model of, they take every student, every background. I mean, because you're not going to see 79% of kids are traveling into his district. They are finding a way to get to his district. You hear his mentality.
now I'm busing them in. I
Busing-
used
there
to
you go.
all come in cars, and now I have to go bus them.
You
So
gotta go
that's
bus
why I'm a
them.
bus route.
They have a
What's
culture.
the name of your book?
I didn't write the book.
Well, I mean,
Somebody
the
else
book.
wrote,
What is it? What's the book?
World's Smartest Kids.
Yes.
Amanda Ripley. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, they were one of the highlighted World's Smartest Kids. So they are a gem. They are a jewel. It is, to your point, appreciate your questions on this, Board Member Deathridge, because what they did is what we try to supply for other districts, those reading coaches, the letters training. We offer that statewide. They honestly, and the map, I mean, we could do a whole, I love talking, we've done this about a dozen times, you and I go through this, but they have an incredible story about how they turned the basketball gym into a facility to turn around test scores years ago. But it really is. It's a, if you Google it, it's quite an amazing story.
That was my former superintendent's book, and I tried to get her to write it, is how you build a reading program is tear down the gym. She would never do it.
Superintendent, appreciate you very
Thank
much.
you very
Always
much.
good
Thank
to
you.
see you. Appreciate what you're doing down there. Okay. Last but not least, we've got Roth Public Schools.
Superintendent Walters, members of the State Board, again, thank you for allowing us to come and present. This is really important to us, and I know that you guys have a lot of things on your plate, so this is very much appreciated. My name is Scott Morgan. I am the superintendent at Roth Public Schools. We are requesting a waiver for 159 days, so only 6 days fewer. We have engaged in the 4-day school week since 2017. And it's interesting being the last individual in this group to be able to speak, because you hear with so many unique stories, so many similarities among us all. When you hear the stories about academic excellence and what we're doing for kids and all of these things, we can echo every bit of those sentiments. We actually saw student test scores and student achievement increase once we started the 4-day week in 2017, and have been able to maintain that ever since. And we engage in data-driven instruction and curriculum alignment. It's one of my passions. I'm one of those people that love that stuff, and that's kind of an anomaly. People look at me funny sometimes when I like reading instructional pieces and aligning that to our state standards. But one of the things that I heard mentioned over and over again that was one of our main bullet points from Roth is excellent educators oftentimes will tell you that extending the learning period within a day has so many dramatic effects as far as those lessons that would have to be cut off, sometimes maybe midstream, are allowed to continue, and we're able to spiral things that have been learned in the past at the beginning of those learning time periods, and we're able to have adequate wrap-up activities at the end, where if you don't have that extended engaged time from hour to hour, you're playing a lot of catch-up the next day. So it's really streamlined what used to be considered maybe a reteach activity for the next day into more of a spiraling activity, where we pull in some of those lower standards in the form of a bell ringer or something like that, and we're able to progress and move on. We engaged a few years ago with some of the other 4-day schools around our area in an initiative we called BRIGHT, Bringing Rural Instructors Together for Education. And although we haven't continued that the last couple of years because some of those other schools did not stay on the 4-day week. I think collectively for a lot of these schools, it helped to institute just data-driven instruction and alignment activities that have sustained and have resulted in continued test scores, not just for our school, but a lot of those schools that were in that original initiative. So again, we're also kind of strange in Oklahoma. It's not strange in Oklahoma. It would be strange nationwide to talk about this, in that we don't have football at Roth. We're a fall and spring baseball, softball school. So that led deeply into one of the decisions to select Friday as our day off, because oftentimes, whether it be those activities or even some other activities that our kids engage in, we found that students were missing a lot of school on Fridays to participate in things. So we've continued participation on those days. We are able to actually structure with other schools, sometimes as easily as a phone call with our athletic director and theirs, so we can try to protect that class time Monday through Thursday if a tournament does start on Thursday. Like, look, hey, can we play later on Thursday? We'll be willing to take the early game on Friday because we don't want to miss that instruction time. So our principals, our educators have become champions of time on task within the classroom. And I heard one of the superintendents mention earlier talking about quality over quantity. What we found is the 4-day week has required us to really intently focus on protecting that instruction time during those hours. So it's been very successful for us, and I'll just end with this. I've heard a lot of people talk about teacher retention. A couple of years ago, I left Roth. I was there for the first 21 years of my career. Left Roth, not because I didn't like it at Roth, loved Roth, had an opportunity to take a superintendency at my home school where I grew up, where my dad was an administrator there, and my mom was a kindergarten teacher, both of them for 35 years plus. So I went back there, great school, enjoyed it, but just felt the draw back to a small school. And I only say that to say the last year when I knew I was going to be coming back to Roth, for various reasons, most of which were administrators or coaches and their wives who worked at our school that pursued opportunities for growth in other districts. Over that summer, between when I found out I was coming back to Roth in April and when I started the job back in July, we had 12 vacancies for certified teachers, filled every single one of them for August. And as somebody else said, one of the main things that kept coming up at those interviews is, you guys have academic excellence and you're a 4-day school, right? So we are able to draw great educators in an area where we would otherwise, I think, lose them because we're centrally located in Pontotoc County, where we have larger districts around us. So it's been extremely successful for us. And again, we just appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and share that today. Thank you all so much, and entertain any questions if you had them.
Thank you, Superintendent. Great explanation there of the work going on there. Do you guys have any questions or commentary or feedback for the superintendent? Superintendent, thank you very much for being here today. Appreciate your work. Love what you're doing. So board, we've got, and you do have a lot in front of you, you got 5 districts on 6A. You've got 4 districts, I'm sorry, I said 6, 7A. You've got 4 districts on 7E. The only one that you didn't hear from was Antlers. That was the one I tried to give the description of. Any further discussion, any motions?
Just a point of a question. All these schools seem to be excellent schools. Is there any data out there that you guys have that compares 4-day school week to 5 days and how that works, just how the schools do?
That's a great question. What I would say is what you heard today were, again, these are folks that met, they have to meet a criteria just to be in front of you today. So they hit all the academic, they are required to have a C or better in every category just to be here. So now, when you look at all of them, it's a much broader picture. There are some 4-day school weeks that don't do as well. I would say the data is that most of the time, and again, there's caveats. You heard from a lot of them today. There are some schools that really struggle on it. You see some D and F schools on there, but What the legislature has done is tightened your ability to continue doing that. And then if you want to continue, you have to hit a waiver. So I will tell you, as time has gone on, you're seeing the folks that have managed this in a way that academics haven't suffered. So in the past, I would say you saw more examples of they're going 4 days a week, but they're a D in academic growth, things like that. But what you're starting to see, currently is much more examples like this of the folks currently doing it. Because again, if they're a district and they're not meeting these criteria, they're not going to apply for it, number one. And number two, they're probably not going to go back to their community. So they've already, what you saw today were folks that went through multiple processes to make it here. So not to give too complicated of an answer, but I would say holistically a few years ago, I would paint a much broader picture of, there were some that really struggled with it. But I would say what we're seeing more today are much more of the districts that have continued it, have developed best practice. Frankly, you hear a lot of them are actually using that 5th day for professional development, for review. Some of them use it to get kids into different workforce environments, things like that. So it is a little different today. I would say that the districts have done a great job of adjusting to that.
So we need a motion to vote on 6A or
Sorry, I got you, yeah.
7A and E.
Yes, sir. And again, we can do an individual. I mean, we can pull them out. We can say this one met the parameters, this one did not. However we want to treat it, we can vote on them all holistically. And so happy for any feedback. And again, I've tried to start the conversation this way. There was a lot of different opinions from previous board members, some that really drew a really hard line on it. There were a lot that said, hey, when they meet the criteria, we feel like we want to grant it. So again, I just offer that up as a description of there's always been kind of split votes on this of how to proceed moving forward. So just want to give you all that context of, there's been different approaches from previous boards here.
Well, absent another motion, I motion that we approve 7A and 7E.
I'll second it.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion? So we have a motion, a second, no further discussion. Ms. Lundy, you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandenhen,
Yes.
Ms. LaPac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Deathridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you all for being here today. I know you took time out of your schedule. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you. Okay, I'm always bad about when to take breaks, but I will say I think we could be close to going into executive session. I don't know that these would take a long time, but we can break now if you'd prefer, or if we keep going. I could be wrong, but I don't think these will take, they're not as much of a presentation.
Yeah,
You're good to keep
I'm
going?
good. I'm good to go.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Ada Public Schools. This is 7B. So they're requesting a waiver, and again, superintendent has been great. We've had a lot of conversations with them. They were hit by a tornado. I'd like for him to give you an update of what's going on. They have been incredibly innovative and creative on how they've dealt with it. But could you update us on where you're at,
Sure.
Superintendent?
Thank you, Superintendent Walters and board members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, not for the reason that I am here. We've had a pretty tough semester. 9-inch snowstorm that caused us to miss a couple of days. We've now had 2 tornadoes go right through the middle of town. The first one did damage to 2 of our school sites, and that's the reason for the waiver request. We did a miraculous job of getting back to school. We had roofs on those buildings in 4 days. We had the water out of the buildings in probably 5 or 6 days. And so the tornado hit us on Tuesday, March the 4th, and by the following Monday, that was our last day to be out of school. I just didn't feel safe about getting back to school on a Monday with some of the uncertainties, but by Tuesday, we were back in school. So we've had a total of 7 days out of school due to acts of God, to be honest with you. But our people have done a tremendous job to get us back up and going and at full steam. Our calendar, I'm not here, you're not going to see the same kind of packet in here because I'm not asking for a waiver of the 165 days. We currently, even with the 7 days we're out, we go 167 days, even with those days out. So our original calendar was 174 school days, no virtual days at all. So we're in school and in business, and I think and I'm not opposed to a 4-day week. I think what you heard is that's the right thing for them. The right thing for us at Ada is to be in school 5 days. And so we're here not to ask for a 165-day waiver, we're here to ask for a waiver on the total hours. We fell short a little bit in that area. But originally, we were well over 1,080 hours, almost 50 or 60 hours more than that at most of our sites when we began the school year. So that's why I'm here. It's not the same reasons the other folks were here, but we do have a need, and I do appreciate your consideration.
Superintendent, I know we've been in discussions on this, but could you give the board some context too of if you had to continue going, what complications will that be for you? I know you got graduation coming up, you've got folks that have already kind of planned. Can you kind of walk us through kind of why that would be very complicated?
We would have to obviously add some days to our calendar and go to school after the scheduled end date. We would not let that impact the date for graduation, but it would cause us to have graduation much earlier in the week than we normally would. And then you get into bus transportation, all your support staff that have to be called back in, food service, those sorts of things for the additional days. I've already talked to those folks, and I know we can do it because they've already proved what they can do when we need their help. But it does present some hardships. Summer school starting as soon as we can. We run a really big summer school, so there wouldn't be much time between the end of school and the start of summer school as well. So there's a lot of reasons that I'm here, but our people have been put through a lot, and I'm here to represent them, so to speak, and see if we can't move forward.
We've been in close contact with Ada too, and to the superintendent's point, if they were to extend, you're making folks that probably planning on a vacation before summer school starts, they're now going to have to, so there is a disruption there, I think, to the staff, and they've been great about trying to be in school.
Right.
Again, we've been in communication with them, and again, Ada, just to brag on Ada for a minute, even though they're my arch rival there, more AP classes than nearly any school their size. One of the first aviation programs in the state. I mean, the services they offer to kids at Ada Public Schools is tremendous. And so it is an exemplar school with, again, for a school their size, I believe, if it's not the biggest, it's one of the biggest summer school programs for all students in the district. And I know that's partnership with the Chickasaw Nation, but it's an incredible program you guys.
Well, we have great partnerships, and I'm a firm believer, and I tell people this all the time, we can't do it alone. So it doesn't bother me to go out and ask for help. But our partners, our community partners, have been great. They don't, if I ask them to help, they just say, when do you need me? They never say no. But Superintendent Walters is correct. I'm not up here for the same purpose that the other folks were here, so they got to brag on their schools a little bit. If you want me to start bragging, we're going to have to maybe leave for lunch a little bit earlier than you wanted to, because I can. But this is a unique experience. First time I've ever experienced a tornado to do damage in the schools, and we handled it very well.
Superintendent, you mentioned partnerships that you've had to get your community, because I consider the school part of the community, and it is, and in large cases, it is the community.
Absolutely.
If you could ask the board for one thing besides this exemption for help, for SDE for help, what would it be? Is there something that,
well,
in the recovery process?
In this process, not so much. We had, unfortunately, last March, we had an $8 million hail claim a year ago. So we still had those folks under contract. That was one reason we were able to jump in there and get things done quickly. But this process helps all of us. We declared an emergency. We had an emergency meeting, so it allowed me to go ahead and start soliciting bids without board approval sometimes and to get those folks up and running. But they've been supportive. Superintendent Walters reached out to me. We visited on the telephone. Senator Langford reached out to me. So I've had those folks get in contact. We were lucky. I'm just going to tell you this. The first tornado went right down the middle of town. It was a small F1, but it did considerable damage. And once we were able to get, what you don't realize sometimes, once we were even had the ability to get our facilities back up and running, the rest of the community couldn't. There's trees down everywhere. There's power lines down everywhere. Nobody has power. We would have considered going to distance learning or virtual learning, but nobody had power or connectivity, so that couldn't be done. We had to wait until all the infrastructure was back in place. In these situations, we just need some compassion and grace as much as anything, because I think we're all equipped to get back up and get running. We proved that, but just the basic understanding of what people need. It's not just schools, it's our people. So,
Superintendent Anderson, it's good to see you again.
good to see you.
As you know, I've spent a little time.
Absolutely, yeah.
How many, so your schedule was way over the 1,080. I didn't catch if you said where you're going to end up this year.
We're going to be, in 2 of our sites, we don't even need a waiver. We built in enough hours in across the district to have enough hours to not require the waiver. In 4 of our sites, we do, and it's the high of 18 total hours is what we're asking for a waiver for. Like I said, we don't do distance learning or virtual learning. We're in school well over the mandated 165. And once again, even with the 7 days we lost, we're at 167.
Okay. And not to correct the superintendent, but I think you were the first aviation program.
We were the first AOPA
Paul
aviation
Akiti's
program.
done an amazing job
Absolutely.
spreading that across the state. So.
And we appreciate your support in that. We've got a lot more going on just than that, but just so the board knows, we've got high school kids soloing planes almost every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
I can
it's
tell you
amazing.
some miraculous stories about that program. But we got a lot of other things to brag about as well.
Yeah, I may be a bit partial, but Ada does an amazing job in a lot of things.
I will add to that, just because you might be interested in this, we're having an open house and a ribbon cutting on May the 7th, I believe. I ask our folks a lot of times, okay, we've done awfully well in this program, what's the next big thing? And the next big thing for us is we're going to build an airplane. And so we've fabricated a lab, and we will have an airplane in that lab next fall, and our students will build a plane. And I'll be the first one to get in it.
That's amazing. Get with President Godwin and get my contact information.
I will.
And invite me to that. I'd love to be there.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
And I will say, we do recommend, they've done great giving us all the information. We don't see any issues. We recommend granting the waiver. Ada's been great on handling it, but also, making sure we've got accurate documentation here on these waivers. So we have no issue with the information. As an agency, we do recommend the waiver.
Thank you.
Now, we might need to add to the waiver that he can't retire at the end of the year like he's planning to. So, I mean, other than that, yeah, but he's done a great job at Ada, and appreciate your leadership through times like this. I know you can never plan for things like what you just went through, but appreciate your leadership there. Been at Ada how long?
Well, I've been back at Ada for 30 years. This is my 44th year at either higher ed.
Wow. He's a staple in Ada, there's no doubt. Staple across the state. Thank you, Superintendent. Board, is there any further discussion or any motions here?
I would move to approve Ada's waiver request, which is item 7B on the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Lundy, do you mind calling a roll call for us?
Certainly. Mr. Van de Hend.
Yes.
Ms. Lepak.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Deathridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you again, Superintendent. Thank y'all for being here today. I do want to give you some information. We gave you some information around Manford Public Schools. We didn't have it on the agenda today. There's a little bit more information that we want to add into the waiver. We've already contacted Manford. We plan on making a recommendation to you all next month. Very similar situation. These are rare waivers, so making sure the documentation is accurate. There could always be issues federally with some of these waivers, so we try to make sure that we've crossed our T's and dotted our I's before we ask for a vote. This happened a few years ago, a district that was not able to meet some of the federal testing requirements. So we're looking through all of that. Do not think it will be an issue, but I've already given you some information there. You're going to be given more before the next board meeting. But I did want you to be aware we are working with Manford. The expectation is for us to present a recommendation to you all, but there's just a few more things that we would need to gather. Okay. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing. There is a C. Okay, 7C. We do need to take a look at a potential action here. So the Oklahoma School of the Deaf have applied for a deregulation. I don't know that it's technically a waiver, but it's, I mean, am I okay calling it a waiver? I mean, it's functionally like a waiver. I mean, it's a deregulation exemption there. But what has to happen is you have to have someone who meets a library media specialist. You're about to see a lot of these, frankly, in the future. It is a requirement that they have a certain amount of hours, a certain type of certification. A lot of schools struggle with this. You're going to see a lot of smaller schools that struggle with this. So oftentimes we get an ask at a deregulation waiver for the librarian to take that role on. They have a library background, but maybe not the media specialist. It's a newer type field in our schools. We do think it's very important. We do try to provide services for those individuals so they can kind of provide the holistic nature of what when we describe a library media specialist. And by the way, if you ever run into them in a school, ask them about this because they're all very passionate that we've got to kind of present this entire media to students, not just the library portion of it. But the Oklahoma School of the Deaf is asking if we can grant them this deregulation waiver for their full-time certified librarian and assistant to serve as their their library media specialist. And again, this is the one on here, but in the future, I will give you a warning. We see quite a few of these as districts try to hire these positions out. And we do recommend this. Like I said, frankly, you're going to see more of it probably in May and June.
Superintendent Walters, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just one question. Is this nuance because of technology and things not being books, they're now on computers and all of that?
Yes, sir, and we're struggling. I'll get a little more context. We are struggling with, there are not a lot of folks with the certification and degree yet. The legislature, and frankly, we agree 100% policy-wise with them on this, of we do need to move into, when you have someone who deals with media, they need to be trained in all of the things for the kids. But we haven't quite caught up as a state yet to train everyone in that certification. So that's kind of, we're kind of in that, we're transitioning to that, but we're not quite there yet. So you got a lot of great librarians that just haven't met those certification levels yet. Districts often go out and look for them, but frankly, the other states are doing the same thing we are. They're trying to adjust into that. Now, we are working on providing more professional developments, providing a quicker, streamlined process there. But yes, sir, we're in that middle stage there of kind of converting what I would say is more of the traditional librarian to a broader library media specialist.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling for a vote for us?
Certainly. Mr. Vandehen.
Yes.
Ms. LePac.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, board. Next, we've got this item D, 7D. We've got two districts here, and to give you a little context here, state law provides that we have a limit amount of days for non-certified substitutes. And we have two districts that have gone over those limited amount of days, but they want the subs to continue for the rest of the year. They lay out, Middale has a long explanation there, if you care to read through it. They give you a lot of background on those teachers. Putnam City has been in touch with us as well. You're going to see a letter from them as well. And I'll briefly kind of give you their arguments. Middale is, these folks are doing a great job. We'd like for them to continue through the end of the year rather than us finding new substitutes in May. Putnam City, basically, and again, we are actually working with them on finding out more about this program. Their argument is we actually provide a really great onboarding program. They call it the Guest Teacher Program in Classroom Management, Understanding and Implementation Lesson Plan. I won't go through the whole modules there, but they have every substitute teacher go through these module trainings. And so their argument is, hey, look, we've got 15 of these guest teachers. They've jumped through all of these hoops. We think they're very prepared. We like what they're doing. We would like to continue through the rest of the year with them as well. We didn't think they'd hit the caps. They did. So we do recommend these two. And it's something that we're looking more into of, could we develop more programs like that? A lot of districts do this. I know I'm very familiar with Oklahoma City does a very good job of this, but trying to give districts some more support on how do we onboard substitute teachers. We did a major push for this my first year of trying to go identify substitute teachers. And again, there is a level of consistency here of if it's the same teacher the kids know throughout the year. We don't want to undermine the incentives to get folks to work towards certification. That's kind of the balance we have to walk here. We want to encourage folks to get certified, but at the same time, we do want to give flexibilities to districts when they have some subs that they really like and have gone through these steps. So That's our recommendation is to approve both of these, but again, you've got a pretty long, lengthy letter there from Middale about the specific individuals. Happy to answer any questions the best I can. I don't believe the representatives from the school are here. I do not believe so, but I'm happy I can answer the questions as best I can.
So Superintendent, I see 135 in this one letter, so that must be the maximum that is allowed in asking for extension. 165 is the standard for school, so do we know, so these are the only two schools that have this issue in the state, and do we know, and I appreciate your comments, and I agree with them, do we know, so are these same people on the list every year for these schools, or is it just unique each year?
Honestly, this is pretty rare. That cap is usually not exceeded. I don't remember, and Chairwoman LePack, you've been around, you predate me, so you can tell me, I don't recall, it's kind of rare, at least to the best of my memory, that we get a lot of folks that exceed that limit.
I don't remember this coming up in the past. I don't know how long the statute's been, or how long the cap's been in effect, but I don't recall this ever coming before the board.
And that's kind of where, remember, we would like to do a deeper dive into, if a district has a program that they believe is really effective and they've kind of moved, there are a few questions I have, which is if they're there that many days, can we get them certified? And, let's let them, so that's kind of where I am with this, where we'd like to work with Putnam City especially on, again, it sounds like a great program. And there could be, other circumstances as to why they don't want a certification. Maybe this person is already planning on doing something next year. I don't know that for a fact, but we do want to continue digging down that road of, again, it has been rare to come across my desk, and just to make sure that we are doing everything we can, that if they're great and they want to be in the school system, let's get them certified and let's get them in a classroom full time.
Right, I agree with that. At 135 days, you probably have an office.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. Did we have a motion? I can't remember. I'll make a motion that we approve. Is this 7D? Did I have that right?
Yes, sir, 7D.
7D.
Thank you. I'm sorry, did you say second? Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Certainly. Mr. Van de Hen.
Yes.
Ms. LePack.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, board. Just making sure, I've kind of got coffee on my stuff and everything else, but I think we've covered everything in 7. Just making sure I haven't missed.
F.
Okay, I'm glad I said that. Okay, F. Okay, we've got a library and media services, 7F. And again, we added it to the end because this was we had the first one that was from March, this one's from April. Yeah, like I said, we're going to see more of this to the conversation we had earlier. We recommend granting the school this deregulation, and I do think we will have several more items like this in future months, and I just think it's that transition stage would be my kind of commentary around that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. So we did March, this is April, same discussion, same issue.
Yes, sir. This is and I believe it's a librarian. Yes, this is a certified teacher with a library assistant asking to be deregulated where they can serve as the library media specialist for Fairland School District.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve 7F.
Second.
So you did say second there, Miss. I'm just making sure. Okay.
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm
No,
not
you're
using my
fine.
microphone.
You're fine.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Miss London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Van de Hen.
Yes.
Ms. LePack.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. So 7F passes. I believe we're going to move on to 8. Okay. Item 8, so we've got legal services, Michael Beeson here. Michael, do we have an item here around the Administrative Procedures Act?
Okay, so board, on March 31st of 2025, Governor Stitt issued Executive Order 2025-08. Should be part of your packet. If you look at page 3, paragraph 4, subparagraph G, it directs the State Department and therefore the State Board of Education to look at Oklahoma Administrative Code, Section 210, 10-1-22. And the specific directions are to immediately review, suspend, enforcement, repeal, or revise. What I've proposed to you is that the rule be revoked for the reason that Title 70, Section 132.2, which became effective 2023, and Title 70, Section 3-134, cover all of these provisions. So what I'm seeing is that in essence, this has been a copy, cut, and paste of the statute. Statute's going to supersede rule.
Okay, let's just, hold on one second. So just to be clear, we're asking to revoke a rule because the rule has now been superseded by the executive order from the governor. Do I understand that correctly?
No. The provisions of the rule are contained within statute, and statute is always going to supersede an agency rule, according to the rules of statutory construction. So our proposal is to revoke it. Revoke the rule. Because the rule, which can be found on www.oscn.net, apparently became effective 7/25/2019. It references some statutes that I believe are erroneous citations to statute under Title 70. The subject matter has then been sent to Section 132.2. By way of example, it's 3-132E. I believe that the actual subject matter can be found at Title 70, Section 132.2, which then refers you to Title 70, Section 3-134. And when you look at that, most all of these here, these criteria on what a conversion plan should have, are contained within the statutory law.
So basically, this section of the code in G is duplicative or obsolete based on this decree. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I believe the rule is duplicative of the statute.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Statute. All right.
Precisely on point.
So, just want to be clear. So, we believe in revoking this. We're revoking it because it's duplicative. It's not it's not going to change anything functionally. We have a rule on the books that needs to go away, and I'm just trying to understand that part of it.
Curiosity, Mr. Beeson, can you, like an example of a religious entity contracting with the Board of Education, like how that would be helpful if we got rid of this? How does that work? You guys know any?
I can't give you an example. I'm sorry, I don't
I was trying to
understand
think
your
of
question.
how, I don't see a problem with it, but
Board counsel, do you have an opinion on this?
I have reviewed Governor Stitt's executive order, and the first thing it requires the parties to do is to review and report within 30 days. And I think based upon that, the date of the order is March 31st, so you're coming up on the ability to report all of these issues. As it relates to the specific code section, he mentions in his executive order, Oklahoma Administrative Code 210-10-1-2022, which excludes religious entities from contracting with boards of education for administrative services. He's saying that that needs to be reviewed and a determination of revocation be made. The issue that I see is the statutes with respect to modifying rules involve the APA, that involves a rulemaking process. So I think the first step is a report needs to be made, and then the second process of revoking it is to go through the rulemaking process.
And that's why Title 75, the APA, Section 251 is cited here in the agenda.
Correct.
I'm Superintendent Walters. I'm a little bit uncomfortable doing anything with this until I had a further better understanding. Not that I don't. I want to rely upon my own understanding of that. Not that I have not listened to both councils here. I'm going to make a motion that we continue this because I'm not sure that I completely understand the ramifications. Also, I don't understand to Beeson's comments. I don't disagree with anything that's being said. I just don't completely understand the full ramifications either way. And I feel like I need to understand that better. Obviously, the board can vote how we need to, but that would be my motion.
Do we, just to reiterate board members' points, I know we need to report to the governor by a certain time.
Correct.
What's the time?
30 days from March 31st, so in just a few days,
But
7 days.
but the report is different than revoking it.
Correct.
So a report can be what?
That you've looked at this and you've made your determinations and report consistent with the executive order. And the law does provide that rules can be revoked, amended, revised at the request of the governor and other selected parties. I lost my statutory authority. So the governor has the absolute right to request a review of these rules, and he's invoked that right. And based upon that, there's 30 days to review and make sure that there's compliance with the executive order. And then once that is determined, it goes through the administrative process of notice, comment, and all of that, and then it comes back to you for a formal vote. The formal vote would not happen today under any circumstances.
But is it, sorry, within this executive order, it looks like we do have to suspend the enforcement of at least that provision pending review, right? So
That would be if a matter came before this board, that would be in your discretion.
it says each state agency responsible for the implementation of the statutes or regulations listed above, which includes this 210:10-1-22, shall suspend enforcement of the identified provisions pending review. Review, repeal, or redraft the identified regulatory provisions and propose revisions to eliminate any other facial exclusions of religious entities and submit them to the governor's office within 30 days. So it seems like if we're gonna report, we also have to suspend the application of whatever this rule is pending further review and revision.
Yeah, I think this comes up a little bit, it came up earlier, and it wasn't a time to discuss it, but the rulemaking happens at the State Department level. And then it comes for you for approval, and you can modify it if you want to do that. And so that is a separate process that is set in motion by Governor Stitt's executive order. In the meantime, to the extent a matter that would be governed by that administrative rule about declination of religious services, executive order states that that should be suspended or not enforced by this board. And so that would only come into play if there was a particular matter that was on the agenda that was up to a vote, and then it would be up to you as a board whether to vote consistent with Governor Stitt's executive order or not. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm just saying that that would be the appropriate time to do that.
I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess my concern is we have an executive order, we have a department rule, and we have a statute, and I only have in front of me an executive order, so I don't know what the rule says. I appreciate you said what the rule says, but I haven't seen that. So I think, if I understood, Mr. Cutlass, what you said, we've been directed to report to the governor, which would be by April 30th or May 1st, whatever the 30th. And so it seems like we should report, that report should include letting the board know what that report contains, and then we can vote on whatever action is determined in that report.
That's how I read it, yes.
Question. So as I read this, it's like the governor's order is recommending A through G be deleted, but we are doing G because G is the one that deals with education. Is that right? Am I understanding this right?
That's correct.
So if we get rid of G.
The only one that was identified for us to consider and present to you
others have to do with something else.
Yes, sir. 210 is
yeah.
The Oklahoma Administrative Code for
Yeah,
education.
I was going to, I'm sorry.
No, you're
I was
fine.
going to look it up last night, but my server went down, said the file wasn't there anymore. I read some of the stuff, and then I went back later, and I didn't get to read it. But as basically, if it's deleted, that religious entities will be able to contract with the Board of Education for some reason if both entities think that's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And so, I'm sorry, Superintendent Walters. Board Counsel, can you, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know, I'm a little bit unclear of the ramifications here. I'm trying to understand it, so bear with me. What are we reporting back? That we agree with this, or that we've looked into it to make sure that we're coherent with it, or what are we actually doing?
There's a statutory provision I was actually trying to find.
Okay.
On my phone, and maybe Hannah Roberts can actually just read the statute for you.
She'll continue that.
In a nutshell, states that there can be a review and an amendment process with respect to rules at the request of certain parties, including the governor, and he's made that request. And whenever that's done, I think it's contemplated that it would be more general, a policy to say, I want you to go through all of the 1,000 pages of regs, and I want you to identify all of them that affect a particular issue. That's really what is designed to do, but he's identified the very specific provision that he wants you to do, and I think that, we probably there needs to be a broader review, but certainly identify this particular provision that he's identified.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understood Beeson's comment. Is he saying don't approve that, or don't, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to understand. You're saying don't accept this executive order, is that correct?
No, sir, not at all. I was telling you that based upon our research, the State Department of Education staff believes that we can revoke the rule. The provisions still exist in statute. Statute would supersede or control over an agency rule.
So you are supportive of this executive order?
Sir, I'm not going to go so far as to say I'm supportive of it. To me, that's a political question.
Okay, I didn't.
I'm doing what I believe I've been directed by the governor of the state to do.
And that was not trying to catch you in a political comment. Let me re-ask that question. Board Counsel, it would be your recommendation that we approve this then, correct?
That we need to do it, and here's the statute: the governor by executive order, or either house of the legislature, or both houses of the legislature by resolution, or a small business may request an agency to review its rules to determine whether or not the rules in question should be amended, repealed, or redrafted. The agency shall respond to the request from the governor or the legislature within 30 calendar days.
Okay. I amend my motion to accept Governor Stitt's executive order. Is that correct? I mean, because that's what I'm understanding, and that's what really needs to happen.
Should it be to eliminate?
To approve 8A.
Okay.
Is it to revoke the rules? Is that the correct order or motion?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this is an executive order from the governor that basically says Oklahomans have a right to the free exercise of religion under the First Amendment to the Constitution. He's gone through and made some statements about that. He's identified some specific provisions in statute and specific provisions in the regulations that facially, in his opinion, violate the free exercise clause of the First Amendment. One of those is this regulation that was a rule apparently passed by this board at some point.
Okay.
That puts out some guidelines for non-traditional public schools. And it looks like in the executive order, it's saying that part of that regulation excludes religious entities from contracting with boards of education for administrative services.
Okay.
The governor's saying that's a violation of the First Amendment and asking us to review that rule immediately and potentially revoke that rule. The
Okay.
department, I think, is now saying, you've reviewed that rule, you agree with what this order says in terms of it has that provision that the executive order cites to, and that you're proposing that we revoke this regulation in order to comply with the governor's order.
I believe that the rule makes a differentiation between sectarian and non-sectarian. I also believe that most of what is contained within the rule, again, is within at least two statutory provisions. So it's my recommendation that the rule be revoked because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's covered by statute.
Yeah, and that's up to
And
the
with regard to the
legislature.
executive order, I think that the primary purpose of it can be found at the third and fourth recitals on page 1.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
you're exactly right. It cites Espinoza, which is a case that we cited in the Bible case, which seems to be indicating potentially a shift in Supreme Court jurisprudence.
Okay. So let me just catch your, yep, yes, sir. What are you?
Go ahead with your comment, Superintendent. I was going to, go ahead. I want to be supportive of Governor Stitt's comment here, his executive order. I was just not understanding. I thought, I misunderstood the context of Beeson's comments. I thought he was trying to decline it. I did not understand that. It's my interpretation. I apologize. And that's where I was trying to get clarification on, so thank you.
I think it sounds to me, we're in agreement. It's just a matter of what is the step. Is the step, do we need to file a report? Can we revoke the rule today, in your view? I mean, is it necessary to revoke the rule? Can we not revoke it and say it's covered in statute and move forward without, I mean, I think we all, I'm trying to put words in his mouth, and we all want to comply with this executive order. So what I'm going to ask you, Board Counsel, is what are the options to ensure we comply with the executive order with this rule that's in front of us today?
I think that it would be a technical issue, but one that should still be done as a report regarding this particular rule, that you have identified this rule. And then the next step, which is not at the board level, it's at the State Department level. It says 75 OS 303 says prior to the adoption of any rule or amendment or revocation of any rule, and this is a rule, except as provided pursuant to the expedited repeal process provided in Section 9 of this act, which has been deleted, follow the APA's public notice rulemaking requirements. It'll go through the process. There'll be a decision with Superintendent Walters and the State Department of Education as to whether repeal or revoke that rule. And then once that process runs its course, it will be placed on the agenda for a vote to formally repeal or revoke that rule upon your vote. So there's nothing other than preparing a report at this time and allowing the State Department of Education to run the rulemaking process to recommend revocation or whatever it wants to do with that
We're
rule.
not revoking the rules today,
No,
recommending it.
that's correct. That is correct.
So what are we doing today? What will we do today? We would send a report to the governor about this rule. Is that an option?
If I were going to recommend something, is that I would recommend that the board make a report and that the SDE be directed to take actions to modify, amend, or revoke that rule consistent with the Administrative Procedures Act.
Could the board vote today to require the agency to create a report to the governor on this rule?
Yes.
And then we could go file the report, and any other action would come before the board?
Correct.
Would that keep us in alignment with the
Yes.
executive order?
Yes.
And that would all be kosher with everything we're doing today?
My belief is that's the case.
And because you could direct us to fill out the report, and nothing happens, we just fill out the report, and then it has to come back to you to revoke anything.
You just explained it. Can you make the motion?
All right, if I can remember that, Mr. Tenney. Okay, so what I would make a motion to do is to have the board direct the State Department of Education to create a report about this executive order, its implementation in our agency in accordance with the rule that's identified here, issue that to the governor's office, and then bring back any recommendations to the board in the future.
That's correct.
That's a long motion.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that, we're good?
Do you want to include in your motion someone from the board that could review the report before we send it so that we ensure that the agency is doing what the board has requested? If that be part of the motion, I would suggest Board Member Lepak. And so that you're aware, I've not seen this rule since I've been here. I know of no enforcement that has occurred.
Now, board, this is up to you. It's your decision. You can put stipulations on the report. Again, I do believe a report, there's no action to it. So happy to run it by, happy to have somebody involved in it, happy also to make sure there's clarity. If we're not doing anything, we're issuing a report, and we can hear it. If the governor comes back and says, yeah, you're right, do it, we can vote on it here, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
Superintendent Walters, I'm in agreement with what has been said and the recommendation. However, I'd like to add Board Member Tenney to that review policy process.
Just to be clear, it's not the board's report because it's not, the board does not enforce the rules at that level. It is the State Department of Education. It's just making sure that the State Department of Education submits that report and then comes back to the board with its proposal to either modify, revise, or do whatever it's going to do with the rule.
I would still ask that Board Member Tenney be a part of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm happy to work with whoever. I just wanted to be
Yeah, no,
clear
of
that I
course.
wanted somebody on the board to have eyes on the report in the interest of transparency.
Yep.
Right, and I appreciate and agree with that. Sending it to 2 board members will not violate any open meeting.
Correct, because the attorneys could all work together on
Yeah,
that
that's
with the
correct.
2 board members, so we should be, can I?
Yeah,
Do I need to
modify.
re-motion that? Okay, can I modify my motion to include that the report will be sent to Board Member LePac, Board Member Tenney, for any input, feedback before sent to the governor's office?
Thank you, Superintendent.
Yes, sir. Do we have any seconds?
I'll,
Or a discussion? Or-
I'll second it. I don't know who's written that down, but I'll second it.
Amy to write all that down.
Do you have it, Amy? Are we good?
Ms. Roberts has written.
Robert's got it too? Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any further discussion before we take a vote on this? Thank you. Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Certainly. Mr. Vandehen.
Yes.
Ms. Lepak.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes, thank you, Board. What I see next on the agenda, again, unless I've, some oversight on my end, is legal services. That would be an executive session, all these items would need to be done in executive session. Do we have a motion or discussion around going into executive session to discuss these matters?
Can I ask Mr. Cup, quick question? I know we were ready for a break. Would that be, when it's sent back to us, attorney-client privilege or not?
A draft potentially would.
Okay.
But likely not be.
All right, just,
Didn't want to mess up. No, I think, to me, it's just a review of the board members with council having notice on it. I don't see any issues.
all right, thank you.
So I would move that we adjourn to executive session and we'll discuss March and April items.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen.
Yes.
Ms. Lepak.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Okay, we will now go into executive session. We have a motion to come back into open session. Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion second. Any further discussion? Okay. Are there any motions coming out of executive session?
Wait, do we need to vote?
Oh, we need to vote on coming out of executive session. Okay. Ms. London, can you call roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen.
Yes.
Ms. Lepak.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. We are back in open session. Do we have any motions coming back into open session?
I will make a motion on agenda item 9B to suspend the teaching, to suspend on an emergency basis the teacher certificates and certificate numbers of Patrick Cobb, Jason Dowdy, Tyler Frizzell, Ashley Ferries, and refer each of those to a hearing officer for revocation proceedings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. London, can you call roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any other motions coming out of executive session?
I'll make another motion on agenda item 9B. This motion is to refer to a hearing officer for revocation proceedings, the matters involving Patrick McKenzie and Joshua Foos, and to deny the application for emergency suspension at this time with respect to each of those individuals.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any other motions coming out of executive session?
I'll make a motion on agenda item 9C to accept the voluntary surrender of the teacher certificates and certificate numbers of Ronnie Davis, Tara Wright, and Kevin Eddings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any further motions coming out of executive session?
I'll make a motion on agenda item 9D to summarily suspend the teacher certification of Anthony Deason.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any other motions coming out of executive session?
I'll make a motion on agenda item 9E to approve the department's application to withdraw the application to revoke the teaching certificate and certificate number of Greg Warner.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any further action items coming out of executive session? Motions?
I will make a motion on agenda item 9G to suspend on an emergency basis the teacher certificate and certificate numbers of Wesley Parsons, Donovan Goodnow, Kira Smith, and Caitlin Foltz, and refer each to a hearing officer for revocation proceedings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
I'm gonna say no, but just as to one person, do we need to split that one out on Ms. Foltz?
You want me to amend my motion?
Can she amend her
can
she amend her
Can you
motion?
amend the motion?
Yeah.
And then we'll vote on her separately, is that okay?
Board council, are we good? Can we stop right here with them? How?
Or do we vote it?
I would just amend your motion to exclude.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll amend the previous motion to exclude Caitlin Foltz. So this is just a motion to suspend on an emergency basis the teacher certificate and certificate numbers of Wesley Parsons, Donovan Goodnow, and Kira Smith, and refer each to a hearing officer for revocation proceedings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any further motions?
Okay, so I'll make a motion on agenda item 9G to suspend on an emergency basis the teacher certificate and certificate number of Caitlin Foltz, and refer her to a hearing officer for revocation proceedings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Vandehen,
Yes.
Ms. LePack,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
I'll vote no, would have just sent her to a hearing officer.
Mr. Dethridge,
No.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Are there any further motions coming out of executive session?
Yes, I'll make a motion, still on item 9G.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
What was the vote, 3-2?
3-2, I believe.
Now, what do we need? Do we need a quorum or a?
That's a majority of the quorum.
So, just the majority of the president?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, sir.
Okay. So still on agenda item 9G, I'll move to continue item 9G as relates to Roger Jesse to be considered at a later date.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Before you call roll, can I get my bearings?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I know we're moving fast. so-
Roger,
Absolutely.
Roger Jesse on 9G1.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Any more motions coming out of executive session?
May I interrupt just for a moment, please? I'd like to make a motion to, in regards to G number 5, that Caitlin Foltz be sent to a hearing. Not that her license be revoked yet, but that it would be sent to a hearing. Can I do that?
I believe that, what, I
We already,
meant,
you
I
did
meant
that?
that to
You
be
made
my
that?
motion.
Okay, I
Yeah.
apologize.
But
The motion was to suspend.
my motion for Caitlin Foltz was to suspend on an emergency basis and refer
Yeah.
to a hearing officer. Is that,
And so we voted no for that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. It carried and it went on. I apologize. I'm sorry.
we're okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So new motion, okay. Still on item 9G, I would make a motion to accept the voluntary surrender of the teaching certificate and certificate number of Jason Ward.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Any other motions coming out of executive session?
Yes, I'll make a motion on agenda item 9H to accept the voluntary surrender of the teacher certificates and certificate numbers of Darius Thompson, Clifton Harris, and Andrew Funderburk.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, you mind calling roll?
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Any further motions?
Yes, I'll make a motion on agenda item 9I. I'll move to accept the hearing officer's proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommendation revoking the teaching certificates and certificate numbers of Kimberly Coates, Tyler Patrick McGrew, and Travis Sloat.
We have a motion. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Ms. London, you mind calling roll?
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney,
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge,
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Do we have any other motions?
I'll make a motion on agenda item 9J to continue item 9J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, you mind calling roll for us?
Mr. Van de Hen,
Yes.
Ms. LePac,
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Any further motions?
Yes, on agenda item 9K, I'll make a motion to grant the joint motion to dismiss with respect to Timothy Van Etten.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Lundin, can you call roll for us?
Mr. Vanderhen.
Yes.
Ms. LePack.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Motion passes. Any further motions? Come out of executive session.
Yes, I'll make a motion on agenda item 9L to set a due process hearing with an administrative hearing officer regarding Lowell Price.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Lundin, can you call roll for us?
Mr. Vanderhen.
Yes.
Ms. LePack.
Yes.
Mr. Tenney.
Yes.
Mr. Dethridge.
Yes.
Superintendent Walters.
Yes. Any further motions?
Superintendent
Yes, sir.
Walters, going through these, I had a concern that there seems to be a backlog at the ALJ. So I look to you, Mr. Cutlass, for a proper action. But I'd like to request that the Department of Education produce a list or document of all backlog of actions at the ALJ.
I don't think we can take an action on that because it's not on the agenda, but that is publicly available information that should be provided to you upon request of the State Department of Education, and we'll work to make sure that gets to you.
So is this the request, or do I need to do that separately?
No, I think we'll get that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
So that's, okay.
No vote, no.
Okay, before we go to public comment, I want to go back to the mobile panic button, item. Let me find what item it was. We put it to the end of the meeting. I have provided the board with some information around that. So look, we can go back and discuss, we can take actions, but I'll kind of just, let's revisit that. Any further discussion on that item?
Superintendent Walters, I would just make a motion that we continue this based upon, I believe there's nobody's fault, but I just believe there's some discrepancy on that, and I don't feel comfortable moving forward with that in time. I would like to request, if we could request the 911 state coordinator, DPS chairman, commissioner, attend our next meeting and hopefully be able to give us some insight on this information. I don't know if I can make that request.
Well, I'm just trying to remember, what was did we have a concern around the deadline on this, or what was the concern on the, okay, let me ask it this way.
It was my question. I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure that we didn't have a hard deadline in the statute for compliance, but it sounded like we didn't.
And that's my understanding too, of the information in front of you. I believe this is for this next school year. So the funds, a vote today wouldn't jeopardize the money for the districts immediately. Again, I'm just gonna say again that, I do think we need to move somewhat quickly so that the districts are making decisions on their finances, on their budget. But I do not believe there's I think it needs to be set up so that districts can make this decision for the next school year. Got this information, we can continue to work together and figure out what all other information is necessary. And we can give clarity on executive order, statute, things like that. So does that require a motion, or is that, if we're gonna continue it, is that a vote?
He's asked for, there hasn't been a second, so.
Okay, so he did, we do have a motion. Okay, we do have a motion to table.
I made a motion.
To the next board meeting.
And I will second that motion. And I do want to say for the record, I believe the concern is, which is what Mr. Dethridge wants to make sure we clear up. The next to the last bullet point on the item that we were provided here says when the contract with RAVE ends in August, districts will be required to purchase their own mobile panic alert button using a vendor from the approved list. The concern is if we just give districts carte blanche to pick their vendor, we will have non-conforming systems all over the state, and that will it may not cost the school districts money, but it will cost the state money to be able to monitor multiple different systems. So I think that's the concern.
I apologize. I know we have a motion. Did we have a second?
Yeah.
You did second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. London, can you call roll for us?
Certainly. This was for 6B, correct?
This is for 6B, correct?
Mr. Vanderham?
Yes.
Ms. LePack?
Yes.
Mr. Tenney?
Yes.
Mr. Deatherage?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
No. Okay, let's take a look at public comments. Let's take a look at public comment. I've got the list in front of me. The first is Joy Howell. If Joy is here. Let me see. We've got 1 minute. Do you have a timer ready for us? We can set that off. Please be respectful of the next person. So please keep it to a minute. Yes, I believe that's it. Yep. Might want to make sure that microphone is on, or should be green. And go ahead.
All right. So I think that our nation is in a crisis, identity crisis, and we know our identity. We're a constitutional conservative republic, and Superintendent Ryan Walters fights for that every day and fights to teach that every day. And he has been elected. He's the only one here that's been elected by the people. He's doing a great job. And I would just like to say that as a board, you're being watched, and we would like it to be a harmonious board. And what I heard is several members saying, I'm all for the protection of children, which is great. Because the Bible says that it's better to have a millstone put around your neck and dropped in the deepest part of the sea than lead one of these little ones astray or cause them to stumble. So I liked hearing you say that, and the fact that please place the children and the students above all, and hold adults accountable.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Howell. Next up, we have Keith Olson. Keith Olson. Oh, there's Keith.
Thank you for this minute. I had something prepared and written, and I left my glasses at home, so I can't read it. So you guys again, I'm going to take it right off of the cuff. But I want you to know, Ryan, that where I'm from Port Gibson, and addressed several people. I share a lot about what you're doing and everything, and I want you to know that your constituents support you and wanted me to deliver you a message that that they're supporting you. And I also brought several thank you notes. I think they'll probably be on your desk, from grandfathers and grandmothers and mothers and dads and kids that are saying that they appreciate the job you're doing. And I support the job you're doing. And I like to come, and that's the reason I'm here, is just to support you and to let you know that you got people standing behind you. And I hope you share those thank you notes with your wife and your kids, because that'll lift them up too. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next up, we have Sheena Martin.
Hello, this is the OCPAC's Wade Burleson speaking. If I can. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I've got a very, very short, like 30-second long clip that needs to be heard. Here we are.
Wade Burleson, I just heard about you. You're sitting beside a good man right there.
Oh my goodness. Good to see you, big guy. That's my gift to you. Really, you'll love this. And I know Alan's talking to you, exchanging information. Kevin, Opac, these guys like you. But basically what this does, I love Reagan. I'm a Reagan fan. But this shows how our republic, just like Rome, is turning to dictatorships. And by the way, I think Trump is probably he's of a dictator, but he is a wonderful and good king. Here's the problem. We're not a democracy, we're a republic.
That is not appropriate for anyone associating with this board to be stating at all, and you need to distance yourself from them as soon as humanly possible.
Thank you, Sheena. Next up, we have Bob Lynn.
I'm Bob Lynn, president of OPAC, and we're here today. The purpose of the board is to help secure the future of the nation, the future of the state. We can do it only by educating future citizens. And it's important that our citizens know why the Bible and Christianity is the foundation of Western civilization, and why the Bible and Christianity was the foundation of the American Republic, and why our founders considered Christianity vital in the culture in order to keep that republic, and why men like Franklin and Jefferson said that God rules in the affairs of men and nations. And for those reasons, I commend you, Ryan, for what you've done to restore a curriculum and to continue to restore it, to show our American values and the values of Western civilization. God bless.
Thank you, Bob. Next up, we have Charles DeFuria. DeFuria? If I'm not pronouncing that right. Apologize if I mispronounced that. Do we have a Charles? Okay. Next, we have Jessica Scott. Jessica Scott.
Ryan Walters loves to talk about giving power back to parents. As a mom, I can say nothing going on here is about parents' rights. We don't have a voice under Ryan. Our speeches are cut to 60 seconds. They voted against the overwhelming majority of public comments that were left by those of us who support OSDE. They silence us at every turn and then say they're giving parents more control. Not even half the board members have a voice. They were pressured into voting on standards they didn't even see. They were misled. They can't even add items to the agenda. I ask the new members to remember this frustration of being silenced and never forget the parents who sat in this silence with you. I spent the morning at the Capitol fighting for you, asking for House Bill 1491 to be passed so that you can have a voice, asking the standards to be rejected so you can have a voice. When you get that voice, please use it in part to speak for us, the parents whose voice has been stripped away. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next up, we have Dawn Finicum.
I'm a retired Oklahoma City public school teacher. My daughter got her elementary education degree at OSU in Stillwater. She taught for several years in Oklahoma. Her husband was accepted into the nuclear program with the Navy. She substitute taught in Charleston, South Carolina, Boston Spa, New York, and now is in Norfolk, Virginia, and has taught there for a number of years. You ask her the difference in teaching, it is a world degree of difference. It was basically, she said, in Oklahoma, here are your kids, good luck. She gets help in Virginia. They get a number of assistants based on IEPs and what test scores are for math, extra coaches, and reading. And we are not doing this here. Also, her husband did not re-up. March 1st, he was done. They met in our church nursery. And at church, I got to pick what religion was they were teaching. They are not coming back to Oklahoma because of your standards.
Thank you, Dawn. Next up, we have Greg Adams.
Superintendent Walters and members of the board, appreciate you letting me speak. I'm here to support the idea of getting Bibles back in the schools. It's like we were very unwise to take them out, take the Bible and God out of school and out of society. For now, you have nothing to stand on. You're like a ship without a rudder, and you just have to go with where the wind sends you. We need to get back to the Bible because that's the source of truth. Everything outside the Bible is a lie, like a plumb line. No sane person questions the plumb line. So we need that same standard for our school systems. For example, evolution, is that the truth or a lie? It's a lie because the Bible teaches that God created all things and all people. So we're teaching children a lie, and that's not right. And woe to the people, woe to educators, woe to administrative, woe to parents who teach their children lies. We've got to get back to that standard so that we can have true education. That's all I have. Thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, Greg. Next up, we have Brent Larson.
All right, it's been a long day. We've been waiting a long time, and we're parents of kids in the Edmond Public Schools, and we appreciate the teachers and the board and what Ryan Walters has done. I was coming to talk about the books in the schools, the sexualized books. We could pull out dozens of them, and my wife and I have been approaching the school board there with no avail. Other than one, they pulled out because it was so egregious and in there for 5 years. So I'd appreciate the new board to look over those books. And what I saw today was somewhat of a dysfunctional board. I would encourage the new board members to read over your packets before. The one gentleman said his server went down. The media here will probably report on it saying Ryan Walters didn't come to his house at 5 a.m. to fix his server. So this is the media that we're dealing with. They won't report on the books. They won't ever report positive from Ryan, or maybe not even look into the board members and their conduct today. There's one board member asking the lawyer, "How should I vote? How would you vote?" This is not a board this is our children at stake, and I will be praying for you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Brent.
Kind of help in our school libraries. We're in Edmond, and we just went through the process of asking to have books about rape and pedophilia removed from the libraries. And the people who chose the books made the panels before we went through the whole process the way that you're supposed to as parents. And they told us that as parents, it's not our First Amendment right to choose for other kids. And so we just have to let the library know if we have a problem with the book, and then they'll take it out. And so I want to just read you one of the books that we will ask that our child can't read that is currently in there. It's called The Bluest Eye. The tenderness welled up in him, and he sank to his knees, his eyes on the foot of his daughter. Crawling on all fours toward her, he raised his hand and caught the foot in an upward stroke. He closed his eyes, letting his fingers dig into her waist. The rigidness of her shocked body, the silence of her stunned throat was better than Pauline's easy laughter had been. The confused mixture of his memories of Pauline and the doing of a wild and forbidden thing excited him. He wanted to F-U-C-K her tenderly, but the tenderness would not hold, and it gets worse. These are books in our libraries, and I ask for some help to get them out.
Thank you, Jill. That concludes public comment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Ms. London, do you mind calling roll for us one more time?
Mr. Vandahan?
Yes.
Ms. Lepak?
Yes.
Mr. Tenney?
Yes.
Mr. Etheridge?
Yes.
Superintendent Walters?
Yes. We are dismissed. Thank you all for being here today.